Dun, dun. Here it goes. All right, we are live. This is the 12 Puzzles podcast on YouTube. This is the holiday special. Welcome, everybody. We got Mark in Denver, Douglas, and Justin. And we're going to have
What's up, guys?
maybe a couple other special guests. And we're going to be talking about, we can talk about New Orleans, but we're talking about anything now. Anything now. Most people are home.
I got a question.
Watch. Go.
Justin, where are you located?
I'm in Virginia.
What city?
Williamsburg.
Williams. Wow, what a cool town.
Yeah. If you like history, come to Williamsburg. Go for a beer.
Yeah. Douglas is in New York. And you are in Denver, right? Not San Francisco?
Yeah, I am.
You're not at the Golden Gate Bridge right now? Are you kidding me?
I'm not at in Marin County, up on the other side of. You see the box is actually right there.
Right.
You're not home in San Francisco.
I gotta look at my little board here.
Douglas, I think I'm having a little trouble hearing your audio.
Yeah, same.
All right. Can you hear me? I may need to change phones.
I know you ain't
clear now.
Is that great?
It's just so it can sound a little fuzzier than normal, but
hey, you're all right. You just gotta speak up.
Okay.
We can hear you fine. And I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. If anybody wants to know, I'm about 45 minutes from St. Augustine, and I'm about 4 hours from Charleston. That's the main two I've been to.
Yeah. Douglas, what city are you in again?
I am near Binghamton right now.
Okay. Because I screwed this up like multiple times where I thought you were in the city proper, but
where is Binghamton?
That's in the middle of the state. I'm out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, okay. So you in the country in New York?
Yeah.
You used to live right in
New York. Douglas,
you used to live right in Charleston, right?
Went out for a dig out there in the city.
No, I actually haven't. Not yet.
That one seems pretty intimidating.
So, but I was planning to do it, and then cancer came up. So, but I'll get out there.
Oh yeah,
It'll be all right, buddy. Just keep fighting. Yeah, we got a few people on the page that are dealing with that right now. One of our members is in hospice now, and we'll make an announcement later. But hopefully she does better and recovers.
We've all been touched by it, and big prayers out to you, Douglas.
No, thank you. Big prayers out to everybody.
Yeah, I don't. Just keep fighting, man. That's all you can do. I lost my dad to that in 2008, and it's nothing to ever deal with. Yeah. Cancer sucks, and my dad, it was his third bout with cancer. My dad started his first bout with cancer right when he retired as a police officer. His 30th year on the job when he was going to retire is basically he was dealing with cancer, and then had it again in 2007, and then of course you could always get that. It spreads, and next thing you know, it's you reach that point where there's nothing more they can do, and it is what it is.
Yep.
But my dad fought all the way, and
a lot of people do beat it too.
Yeah, a lot of people do beat it, but chemotherapy is no joke, and
it's a big deal.
Yeah, it takes a lot out of people. And my dad fought all the way to the end, but I basically, I knew when my dad, he just got tired of it. I was like, he just basically said, I don't want to do this no more. And I said, I understand. And that was it. And it all happened really quickly, but that is, I'm trying to think more. My dad I was thinking about this the other day. My dad would be like 85 today. Yeah, but I think he was 67 when he died. way too early.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it sucks, man. Cancer sucks. A lot of people, that's one logo for a lot of groups is cancer sucks. And like, yeah, it does. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
But
Well, we're behind you, buddy.
Well, thank you. I got to work on The Secret while I had cancer, so it helped me. Especially since, chemotherapy slows your brain down a lot and makes it slower. So thinking about The Secret, going through all the history, and you got to remember stuff all the time. Helped me a lot. So good for The Secret.
Yeah, I think that, we were talking about this a little earlier off camera. All the side benefits to this thing. We're all chasing these boxes, and we all want to dig one up or be part of the team that does. But my goodness, this guy put together something that it's not just. I mean, it's almost like the box is like so far down the line for everything else. The friendships, like
Yeah.
how it does help your brain, like thinking in 3 dimensions and critical thinking and reasoning and all this. And as it's proven, like, why are these old folks doing Sudoku puzzles and things like that? This is my Sudoku puzzle.
ooh, I
So
love I love Sudoku.
there's just so many good things about this, and that, like, for me, when you got these kind of hater people, that they're so raw, it's like, oh man, you're just missing the whole point. Like, can't we just have a discussion about this? Why do you got to attack? And so clearly, I think those people eventually just get weeded out and blocked, and because it's so much more than that. I mean, I've met up people, in San Fran and New York, and it's been so cool. I've been to all these places, right? Maybe for you guys, like, you've been around a little bit more maybe than the average bear, fortunately. But I'm to these places, and you guys have been to places that you'd never go. You would just never go and experience these places and how cool they are.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
That alone has made my life better.
That was
You can't really put a
fire.
price on that aha feeling that you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You turn over a leaf and there's something there, and that rush comes at you.
The light bulb, when you make a connection, you're like, boom, like, wow.
I know. Yeah, it's a pretty great rush. So very thankful
It's
for everything.
Good for the brain.
for us.
It's good for the brain.
Yeah. And that's part of it. It's, Byron was a history teacher, and he wants people to, you're going to learn stuff. If you like history and you want to learn history and you want to learn a ton of stuff that you don't, there's these common, George Washington, he's first president of the United States. He's on the dollar bill. There's so much more about these people that you don't even learn in school. I mean, there's a lot of experiences about from Ben Franklin to the wars, everything that encompasses the Secret Book. And it's Byron was called such an innovator when it came to like the comic book world because he did different stuff. He didn't go
digital angle, right? That he
did. I posted that video where he was talking about his iBooks, and I remember watching that, and I was like, so he's telling the lady, like, if you want to download, I mean, this is stuff that's so common today, but this is like the early 80s. He goes, he had this little thing, it's almost like an iPhone. He's like, well, you can download it. Your kids can watch this in the car. They can read the book in the car. And she says, well, what is that? And he pulled, I don't even know what this thing is. He shows the camera. And it's like, he mentions Amazon. And I think a lot of Jeff Bezos, everybody knows who he is today. I think he ripped off a lot of stuff from Byron. Basically, iBooks is Amazon today. And Jeff Bezos says when Amazon first started, all he did was sell books.
That's right.
And I think a lot of this, if you talk to Jeff Bezos, I'm pretty sure he knew Byron was so ahead of his time. And I don't really think he liked that innovator title, but he was. Ben Asen said he was a daydreamer, so he was thinking about stuff. And I remember watching that video, and I'm like, this is crap that people do today with their kids, like that little thing that you can download books on it. He was talking about downloads, and parents go on and download this, and the lady goes, well, most parents have their laptop, so are they supposed to? Byron goes, yeah. They pull up their laptop, and while they're doing work, they can be reading a story to their child.
Can you imagine if he was alive today? I mean, he would be clearly on the forefront of whatever was going on. AI,
He was one of them guys where he realized
virtual reality.
And that back in the 80s, I remember as a kid, I had the Atom computer. I basically, it was a word processor. You could type up reports for school. I remember my teacher used to go, what the hell is this? And I was like, well, I got an Atom computer. So I'd type up, report, essay, whatever. He was worried about, he was looking at the print and the paper. And it took back then it took like that industrial copy paper that had the perforation holes on the side so the printer could feed it.
Yeah.
I got a computer. So I like instead of writing out stuff by hand, I was typing it up, and the printer would print it all out. And
hey, Eric, do you want to share? You want to share that screen that I'm showing?
Yeah. There we go. Woo,
There he is.
it worked. We're sharing 5 screens and nothing crashed.
So
Even
I'd
the
like to
Messenger
I'd like to
report
propose
out, there was
something.
no problem today.
I'd like to propose something, sir, leader, our dear leader.
Go ahead.
So I've worked on 5 puzzles, and I'm starting to branch out. And 3 of them I like, 2 of them I'm uncertain of. But in the process of that, and you guys, I'm sure, and many hunters feel the same, you have to get into this guy's brain.
Yep.
You have to. So you think about, and this is, I asked this year at some point. I was like, who is this guy? Describe Byron. And people came back with all this cool stuff. And I should summarize that, everything that people wrote. But I think that's really crucial to increasing your odds of ending up in the right place. And I really think a lot of people don't take the time to think about the man and who he was and how he thought and what was important to him, what he cared about, okay? Because you can use that as an incredible overlay to any puzzle, okay? I'm talking super big picture here, right? So as an example, and then I'll shut up and let you guys comment. In San Francisco, I've got this in the background. Think about this man. He was at a very big picture level. He was interested in these interconnections between things that no one else saw. He was interested in quirky, cool stuff. Like we were just talking about. His mind is thinking ahead, and he's an innovator, all right? And he's super, super smart, okay? So when I say, hey, I think Byron's going to take you on a highlight tour of San Francisco because there's so many cool and interesting and unique things about San Francisco, I think if the more of that you include in San Francisco, the higher the probability, okay? Now, contrast that with Cleveland, and I've ripped on Cleveland before. Sorry, Cleveland. It's not even close. Like, name me something interesting that you want to see in Cleveland. There just isn't, okay? So these puzzles are different. The Cleveland puzzle, it was like 20 feet or something, right? I mean, there was no journey in the Cleveland puzzle, as far as I know, right? Now, in San Francisco, you have the polar opposite of Cleveland. And this is why, and look, I didn't start with this. I should have. Now, but being so far into this, when you look at San Francisco, how can you leave the bridge out? How can you leave Fisherman's Wharf out? How can you leave all these cool things that make San Francisco, San Francisco? I don't think this man would be that mean or dumb or careless to leave these things out in San Francisco. So the solve idea that I like, it just so happens that I look in retrospect from the place where I'm at, it's a highlight tour of San Francisco. And there's like a light bulb that went off in my head, like, holy crap, like, yeah, Byron would do that. He would be that nice to us, to show us all the cool stuff in San Francisco. Okay. So so once I got onto this idea, like, to me, it just started. So now, how do you overlay that? If I'm right, what are those cool and interesting places, historic, that he would want you to see in these other cities?
Yeah, I think you touched on something really big there.
Gate,
Getting
you wrote
into Byron's head
word
is
gate.
crucial. And I think the best way that I found to get into Byron's head, everybody has their own opinions, I think. But the best way to get into Byron's head is to read his books. Pick up some of his books on eBay. They're super cheap. Read the foreword. Read, anything he's written personally. And that will give you like a huge amount of insight into who he is, what his likes are, what his tendencies would be, what he thinks is cool. Because he got
So
some big cities
clearly,
there,
you've done that, Justin. Who is this guy? Who is Byron Priest? Who is he? What does he like? What does he favor?
I mean, how do you put that into a sentence or two? Byron, he's very proud of his heritage, but he's proud of America too. There was a lot of turmoil back in his day, so politically in the country.
Are you
there's a
talking the
lot going on.
60s?
He mentions the 60s in a few of his interviews. He's more like a child of the 70s, but like the Cold War is going on. There's all this assassinations with JFK and Martin Luther King, and this is all being imprinted on him as a young man. And then, that is reflected, I think, in what the history he wants to tell us, the big picture stuff. Because there's a lot of little tidbits here and there, but like it's hard to ignore the big picture stuff. And
Why do you think he went on this immigrant kick with The Secret, right? Because this does it really fit? I'll ask you the question. Does it really fit the other books? Like, why did he, and his family, right? When they interview, I think it was Josh Gates, and they were like, oh, he's very interested in immigrants and the struggles and the successes and all that. What are your thoughts on The Secret and sort of this whole angle that he took?
Well, his grandparents immigrated over from Russia. They were Jews in Russia that got displaced and moved over to New York City, started life there. So I think that really inspired him. And there's a lot going on in New York. I think John Lennon, his immigration story happening in New York right around the same time the book was being worked on, and his assassination inspired him. He was trying to get citizenship here and was running into a political wall with Nixon. And so a lot of that was transpiring in the late 60s, early 70s. And
so that was kind of top of mind in America, this idea of immigrants, plus his background. And so clearly he was inspired. It was his grandparents that moved?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, his grandparents moved over. And
I mean, that would have been what, the 50s or something? 40s?
Something like that. Yeah, maybe earlier than that.
For that.
I
You
think
know,
that's why they.
We're all immigrants. That's the. If you look at any of these
true.
stories in the Secret book, they and you can Google search inventions of immigration to solely see. The original immigrants in North America were British, but
wait a minute. The Native Americans were the first real immigrants.
Yeah. And the Spanish beat the British, I'm pretty sure.
They were already living here, but basically everything we have, like a lot of people look at the liquor industry, which is depicted in the book, and either the Leprechaun Man and the distilleries of Kentucky. A lot of people think that's an American thing, and it's like, no, it's not. That's an Irish Scottish thing. You look at Jameson Jameson whiskey, which is the oldest whiskey brand in the United States. It's an Irish whiskey. It was that distillery. They're all Irish immigrants. It's not an American thing. They immigrated and they created it in America, but who actually created it? Irish immigrants. There's
So Eric, what's your take on that question? Is why did Byron, take this, immigrant? Why did he undertake that for The Secret? Do you think?
there's so much stuff in this country. If you take Milwaukee and the automobiles, everybody tried to, or you take Roanoke Island and the Wright brothers. Okay, this is the inspiration of the Wright brothers. Octave funded them. They wanted to create the first powered flight, but they did that. They were inspired by Otto Lilienthal, the German, who was actually the first to fly. He was the inventor of the hang glider. So when you go to flight, Germans. If you go to the automobile, Carl Benz with a K-A-R-L, Mercedes-Benz, he was the German that actually created the first automobile. So if you go to Henry Ford, Charles Nash, Daimler of Daimler Chrysler fame, anybody else, they basically went off Carl.
They picked up the idea.
And yeah, so if you look at the automobile in your driveway today and go, where did that start? It's got an immigration factor to it. Now,
By the way,
the automobile immigrated to America, even though the first car was made in Germany, but it was made by a German. You'll find out with The Secret that a lot of the Wernher von Braun, the father of rocketry. Where did rockets come from? A German. A lot of The Secret has to do with German, British. It's early history too. It's with inventions and stuff like that. But alcohol, Irish. But that's the distilleries in Kentucky and America. Where did alcohol? Who first said, "Hey, man, we can boil this stuff and make some liquor"? They figured out they got drunk. That dates back to Egypt.
Some really great people. So I would just add, I did a I didn't say that. I did an operation at the Wright Brothers Memorial. Have you guys been there? If you haven't been there, go there. Justin, you been there?
Yeah, I've been there. Quite a few
Is it
times.
not the? Is it? I get the first pipe organ of the night. All right. So is it not the coolest? Like one of the coolest things you can do is go there, and you can only go so far online. When you're there in the element, you are there. I mean, you're there with these guys as they're breaking history, and they're doing something that no one had ever done. And so that just, again, another example. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Eric, but go to the Wright Brothers Memorial. Not only is it a cool place to go, like with the Outer Banks and all that. So here's, I want to just wind this too, as I think about Roanoke Island as an example. I did an operation at
And where's the button?
Wright Brothers Memorial, and I'm saying I did an operation, okay, and I actually put a whole video out on this failed operation, okay. So I'm proud of my failures, and I'm more than happy to talk about
Okay.
it. But you think about, okay, he wants to cover Roanoke Island and the settlers, okay? The first settlers. That's like the Statue of Liberty. You must include the Roanoke Island story in this whole undertaking, right? You have to. They're the first people, the first immigrants here. You must cover it. Now, he's got Roanoke Island and that whole story. But right up the road is the Wright brothers. Okay? So
They're part of it.
Byron, I'm Byron. There is no snowball's chance in you know where that I can leave out the Wright brothers, the first flight. There is no way he can leave that out. So I think what he does, right? He takes you by there. He has to. Byron Priest and who the man is, he must take you by the Wright brother, like where the first flight happened. Okay,
That's right.
so this is my thing, like, and I get kind of giving some of my secret sauce away. When you get into this man's head and his brain and how he thought, he's like Roanoke Island, and he's looking around and saying, "What else is around Roanoke?" He's got to cover the Wright brothers. He has to take you by there on this hunt because you're not going to just go right to Roanoke Island. You're
Yeah.
going to go and experience the Wright Brothers Memorial. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about. Why San Francisco, as an example, it's all along the shoreline. He's not that mean. He's actually a nice guy, I think. He's not going to leave out all the cool stuff of San Francisco. Okay. So when you think Roanoke Island, now, does he take you from the Wright brothers all the way down to Roanoke Island, which is like 25 miles, and then back? No. He's not going to make you do a 50-mile round trip, okay? So
Well,
as I'm saying,
Roanoke Island
this
is a-
Wright
is a
brothers
great
is there. If you don't think Wright brothers is part of this, you got to go get a brain replacement.
And that's a very small area. And you know, the Wright Brothers Memorial is actually in Kill Devils Hills.
Kill Devil
North
Hills.
Now, Roanoke Island is a different city, but you see, you can get to the other within minutes.
It's the farthest journey, I think, of any of the puzzles. But
that
look,
puzzle-
folks, he's
puzzle
not going to
is
leave
simply
out
a
the Wright
driving
Brothers
walking
Memorial.
path. It's a driving walking path. That's a puzzle that basically, what do you really need to get to the point where the cask is? You need the verse. That's a verse puzzle.
There you
Actually, I
go.
had a conversation 2 days ago
Yes.
with a guy up there, and I said, when you look at the painting, you're seeing imagery of Queen Elizabeth I. The night, he's like a plane. He's got struts under his arm like an airplane. He's making like a plane.
Well, like the airplane they built.
Yeah, but the armor is a symbolism of a certain timeline of the early days of the British Crown when they actually had knights. You know, at one point these guys dropped all their armor garbage, but you see Roanoke Island, you see the window, which mentions in the verse, but basically, I was telling him on the phone, I said, look, imagine you know nothing about Roanoke Island or any of that area, Wright Brothers or nothing, and you have to actually do the research. Octave, he has a connection to the Wright Brothers. He also had a connection to Otto Lilienthal, their inspiration for trying to produce the first powered flight. Just follow the verse. You go south, you ride the Man of Oz, not the Wizard of Oz, L. Frank Baum, but William Baum, but same last name. He's basically using the Wizard of Oz as a reference to William Baum because you'll see Frank Baum. You cross over.
So where do you guys think Roanoke is? Do you guys have a solve idea there?
Yeah, it's on the beach. When you go into the Elizabethan Gardens, the actual garden is a circle inside a square. It says a path beckons you. Once you go through it, the path beckons you to the beach. Mica driftwood. Mica, silica, beach, sand, driftwood. Driftwood's only found in one place. The problem is where you go out to the beach, the way it was when Byron was there, it's not like that anymore because of erosion. But he says, basically, you enter the beach, he tells you to go to Mica driftwood. That's the beach.
Here's the problem, Eric.
Big.
The problem I have with that, here's the problem. And I used to agree with that concept, and I've worked on it. And again, I ended up, my brain took me to WBM. Okay. I don't think that's right. The problem is when you look at the painting,
Well, that's the verse.
It's
is
not.
He says,
It's not.
north
But
of the wing.
you should.
You're not at the wing.
You
He's saying
should see.
north.
You should see at the dig location what's in the painting, right? And so, whereas New York City, by Von Briesen works, or maybe up where Douglas is, there's so much water. There's what appears to be water in this painting. It's like you're looking out over water. Charleston, kind of the same. With Roanoke, you have a little window into what could be water, but it's a looks to me like a very much a physical man-made space. So that doesn't fit structure with being on the beach where that gate is, that's now like virtually not there anymore. So I again, I don't have a spot in Roanoke, but to me, I want to find a place that's probably where I've got some man-made with maybe a window in front of me.
Well, you got to use other clues. So where white's in color is a reference to John White. Dark forest is on a plaque inside the garden. That garden was built in memory of the Roanoke colonists. And the two maps are inside the building where you come into the park. But see, that's the private property. I used to think it was at the old oak tree that historians believe was there when the colonists, because it said under that just means the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Eric, I have the painting up if you want to share that.
And I've shared this before. If you go to that beach, and this is my clock compass theory that I came up with years ago. If you come to that beach with a compass, and I kid you not, it's exactly like that. If you come to that beach with a compass and it says gaze north and dig. So when you used to come to the gate there, it kind of curved. There was a little berm, and you curved around to the right. I can't find any photos of where you actually ended up on the beach at, but it says 2 Micah Driftwood. So you'd come out on the beach off that little trail. It says gaze north of the wing and dig. So you take a compass out and you go, that's north. When you look at 1 o'clock on the compass, it goes right to the Wright Brothers Memorial wing that's on it. If you fire a laser from that point of the beach, it hits that memorial.
Yeah, so Eric,
that far away. So 1 o'clock on the compass, the degrees of that, which is we'll be having a special guest in about 10 minutes. I'm not going to tell anybody. Y'all know who it is. Don't say nothing. And
Okay.
1 o'clock, I believe that's how you use so north 1 o'clock is 30 degrees. January is going to be 30 degrees.
So JJP is sort of, and I find this interesting. Again, there must be a great answer for it. Okay, this is clearly the Wright Brothers Memorial, and
yeah,
it's shown
and at the end
in mirror. But this angle, I think you would have to, as I've looked at it, you would have to be in an airplane to see this as it is. But I think it's very telling. This means something. You must be south of the Wright Brothers Memorial, I think, based on JJP showing you the memorial from the south. Okay,
you're exactly right. Years ago, I talked about what's called spatial thinking. I think it's SPATIAL. This is how it. If you don't fly an airplane, you're not a pilot. It's like when you're coming down the road to turn in your driveway. It's how you can do that visual reference when you know exactly when to start turning your wheel. That's how a pilot will say, you got an airfield and the pilot's flying, and he'll watch the airfield turn, and then he knows when to turn and land. This is when you have a visual. And if you read the verse, like here in the painting, you have the horse mouth. That's where the hang gliding school is. At the time when Byron was there, I don't know if that's today, that's the largest hang glider school in the country. That's Otto Lilienthal right there. Kill Devil Hills, that came about because people in that area, they used to put torches on the beach to make ships run aground. And rumor has it there was a ship came apart and the liquor washed ashore and the guy drank it. He said that crap is so bad it killed the devil. You see the morning star. That is the morning star. See the morning star on the armor?
So is this north? Is he trying to tell you it's north? It kind of looks like the memorial too, because the memorial has this, circle around this where you can drive around the. Right?
It's easily explained. That's the North Star. And that is part of the morning star sunrise, which is also the weapon you see there. This is something the Outer Banks are famous for.
So I want to throw this out to the crowd. As I was looking, I've been re-looking at this one, but you've got a lot of symmetry going on here, but a lot of not. So I want to just point out just a couple things.
Yeah, you see the airplane on the armor there. I mean, the airplane clues.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. But like, for example, see how Mason like this looked like other window is? You don't really see that over here.
Mm-hmm.
I find that very fascinating, and it's not by accident, folks. There's nothing in these paintings that is a filler or JJP just wanted to do it that way, or stylistic. Bullshit. No. This guy was so intentional. He was such he thinks in, 10D. So these are something like when I'm hunting for the right spot, I'm looking at this and I'm doing what's different, right? When you're a kid, you play that little game of the, what's different in these photos. Well,
in the painting,
this is different over here. There's no bricks.
Town car always
here.
Different.
Bricks over here. If this thing is so symmetrical, that must mean something. I don't know what yet, but I guarantee you this is intentional, and part of figuring out why that's different will help you get to the right location. So that's just the other thing that I would just point out on this one. This looks like a raised amulet. It looks like, hey, this is the stone, right? This is the gem. But when you really zoom in on this thing, folks, it's actually recessed. It looks to me. And there's these two, like maybe this is the Wright brothers. I don't know. But this looks to me like it's recessed, not embossed. Just one thing. And then one other thing I want to show you on this one. Hands and fingers and toes and everything point to the box. Okay? Clearly, there are hands here, and they are pointing away from the entire, wherever this is, he's pointing away from it. He's not pointing to somewhere here.
Yeah, I thought that was sign
fingers.
language at the time. Well, there's a map right there below your cursor.
Yeah, there's Roanoke Island, right? So if I follow this,
and over here is the entrance to the roads matched up. They've been changed since, but that top line is a road, and that comes into that's the beach where they fly the kites every year, and that's also where the hang glider school is.
Okay,
they changed that initial road. The keys and bells. I always thought the bells were representation of the lighthouses. The key is obviously the airport.
It has multiple meanings. So the last thing, at this point, this index finger doesn't actually point to Roanoke Island. It points just north of Roanoke Island to basically what's Mann's Harbor. So I find it interesting that this index finger is that when you just draw a line, it misses Roanoke Island, pointing to the gem. So anyway, so then you have the clock, right? And I can't figure this one out for the life of me. It's also pointing off the map. There's off the painting.
And the clock so
you've got the one
on it too.
It's one. Yes, but it's pointing to 1 o'clock, and that's off this map as well. So
you see the pedestal that the armor's on? That pedestal, those are all over the Elizabethan Gardens, and so is the Dark Forest.
Even before I get there, Eric, I'm trying to figure out what in the hell is he trying to show us. Because the other, like San Francisco and Charleston, are all, they don't do this. This one is quite different.
This is why I'm saying
you have these fingers pointing like over here, wherever over here is. So you've got to get some orientation. But find this, like, there is no way this finger right here isn't pointing to the gem. Okay.
Well, if you look at
it's
stuff,
pointing to the gem. I promise you, if you know where this finger is pointing, you will find the right spot. Okay. So these are just things like, before we get too deep, before we have all these, way off the board where I can solve what's here, folks. what are these hands pointing? Where's this clock pointing? I mean, it's pointing up here, kind of like over here. So where is over here on a map?
Hands.
The 1
just
o'clock,
go
if
with
I follow
imagery.
that up, so it's pointing over here. Like, where's over here? God only knows. But so these are the things that I look at and I say, people have these very convoluted solves in that. I'm like, time out. Like, focus on what's there, what's what I call on the board, before you have these wild connections that I can't see. It's not in the verse. You're stretching like 3 and 4 iterations to try to make a connection. No, where are these hands pointing?
Oh, well,
It's
to
going
me,
to
how
lead
the
you
book
to the
works,
box more than some crazy connection, I think.
you have, like, you see the bat. So there's a bat observatory, like research center on Roanoke Island. I believe that's what the bat represents. The morning star, that represents the sunrise that is the entire Outer Banks, including Roanoke Island.
How do you know that?
Because the weapon's called a morning star, and the morning star sunrise is the other pretty much definition of that.
But let's just look at this for
Morning
a
star
minute.
is the
Like,
North Star.
I see something that kind of looks like a map here, and then it does kind of like, maybe this is water over here, because there's really nothing in here.
Yeah,
So
I've
if
never
I just
really,
if I step back and I look at the big picture here, I got all this stuff in the background here on the wall that is this intricate, kind of looks very map-like, but then it stops. So the hunter who's going to find this box and be in the right spot is going to understand what JJP is communicating to us here. This he could certainly take this motif of these what looks like maps to me.
see, these
He
little
could-
ball corners are everywhere in Elizabethan Garden. Dark Forest is in the garden. The 2 maps of John White. The verse is just full of.
But even the bigger picture, when I just look at this painting, what is this painting trying to tell me? If you're going to find this box, you have to ask these questions. Be ultra curious
It's
and
clues to
try to
immigration.
understand, what is he showing us here? Like, he's showing us what looks like some kind of map, but then it kind of turns not into a map. So is this the edge of land and this is water?
I'll tell you, with John Poundcar, unless it's something like Roanoke Island, John Poundcar, I've said this before, where it's kind of like the bee in Boston and the Boston painting, or we were supposed to be able to tell that's a witch. I think this is stuff like So when you show one of them images and go, look at this, don't you see it? Don't you see it? And someone goes, no, I don't see it. What do you talk? Oh, you don't see this, right?
So look at the pedestal. The pedestal has all these intricate, like, brick-like features, which kind of almost match what's on the floor.
Yeah.
But then they sort of end where his name is written in. So why is he doing this? You have to get super curious about these paintings, particularly. You have to ask a lot of questions. Why is he doing this? What could this possibly mean on a big picture level? And then you start to narrow it down, right? So I'm just throwing this out there because I don't have a good answer for Roanoke.
I can figure. Go
But
to
these are the
figure, hang out.
things. These are the things that will make complete sense. I promise you, if you're in the right spot in Roanoke. These things, you'll be like, oh, well, this explains that. This explains that. This explains the feathers, or, these aren't feathers. They must be something else. But okay, so I think if we're going to solve these things,
it's called red something. It's like a name.
Well, see, like, these are kind of looking like feathers, but JJP, he's going to put 3 or 4 different things into one image. So what the hell are these things? I don't have a good answer for that. It kind of looks like, I don't know.
I've researched the hell out of that. I don't.
Justin, what are these things? What are these red feathers here?
Or Douglas, you got anything?
I don't know what those red things are, but I think that it's some kind of reference to the Red Cross Knight. Have you guys ever read that book, Edmund Spencer, Red Cross Knight, Fairy Queen? He was a friend of Raleigh's. Really interesting read. in the story,
Yeah.
the Red Cross Knight has to battle error. Uh, I think he has us battling a lot of error in this puzzle. There's a lot of red herrings. So, but what that is exactly, I have no idea. I think it might be like that part in Boston where there's like a swirling orb, and at least in the EU episode, they have no idea what it is. It's just a enigma. It's just meant to make you go around in circles endlessly.
See, like, okay, I'm just like, there's these kind of like fork-like. There's one over here. There's one here, one here, one here, one up here. And
I've
they're kind of
studied
in the.
them immensely. I can't make heads or tails of them. I'm thinking
They're
like
in the
maybe
in the.
they're landing strips. Like they kind of resemble like where you would see landing strips. But that's all I can think of.
It's like
With
up
all the
here, you've
ties
got
to
all
it.
these. You've got all these. I'm going to call them red feathers. You got all these red feathers come down, and then there's this one that's shooting up in the background. There's a reason for that. Douglas, have you looked at Roanoke all that much?
I'm going to blow your mind. I don't think it's in Roanoke. So,
On Roanoke Island.
no.
Well,
no,
the fingers tell you. The fingers tell you that it misses. I take this painting when you get a chance. Put a piece of paper up and follow this line. It misses Roanoke Island.
Yeah,
Where do you think it is, Doug? Where do you think it is?
Yeah.
I don't say anything
Philly?
right now. I got a teammate over there, and I got to get permission before I can talk about this one.
Okay.
But I don't.
You got Robin, huh, Batman?
Yeah, I got the whole Bat family out there.
There you go. Yeah, I'm pretty tight lips about that puzzle.
I love this
But I
painting.
believe
This
it's
is
in
my
North Carolina.
favorite painting. It
I believe
bothers the
it's in North
shit out of me
Carolina.
that I can't figure this painting out, by the way. But this painting, I think it's the best one. It's the most interesting, and it's just, gosh, it's just, there's something about it that just, I think it's the best one. I would vote this one the best one.
The damn red things bother me. So
Yeah. I used to love it. Now I hate it.
But these are,
Yeah.
I think the way you solve these, okay, I'm making a case. So in the paintings, you need orientation. You must orient yourself. There's something man-made in here that you can orient yourself on. And
You're right.
that's true for the ones that I really.
Oh, crap.
Uh-oh.
Hang on. We're going to have to let Mark come back. We're having technical problems.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't think it's there. So
Hang on. We're about to add Ben Asen. Yeah, well, we can't do 5. Here's Mr. Asen. Happy holidays, Ben. How are you?
I am doing just fine. How's everybody?
Hey, man.
good.
We're good.
It's
We
a
just
little-
booted Mark by accident. Sorry.
Oh God, it was that. So just reintroduce yourself. I know Eric very well. Where's that San Francisco guy? I want to talk to him for sure.
Yeah, he's back. He's back.
Yeah.
Here he comes.
Hey, Ben, you kicked me off.
How are you?
No, I was trying to remove the extra one you had there. And
Oh,
Ben,
okay.
here, but
Now I know what you really think of me.
I can't do 6.
Well, first of all, since you're in Northern California, what kind of red wine is that? Pinot Noir?
Well, I have San Francisco, but I'm in Denver, Ben.
Oh, that's right. You're in Denver, right? I forgot
Yeah.
about that. Yes. How are the kids? All right. Good.
Well, we've got some controversy on that right now.
All right.
So
You got your photos up in the office?
no,
No, you don't.
no.
Oh, okay.
See him?
Oh,
See him
there
back
they are.
there?
Oh, there they are. Okay. All right.
Ben-
Well,
Ben's got Ben Asen. I know nothing.
I know. All right. Well, I know a lot of things. I can tell you that. But I listen, as I tell everybody all the time. And I spoke to Sandy the other day. We were going to try to get together, but it didn't work out before she left on vacation with her girls. She don't know much either. I mean, she knows where the jewels are, obviously, in a vault, but that's about it.
That's like everybody else.
What I do find interesting is that you 4 guys, I think you have very good cognitive skills. You're keeping your brains going, and that's the most important thing. Okay. I think any one of you could probably be president of the United States.
Oh no.
At this point, it seems
But
that way.
I could. I'll go ahead and admit that.
anything you want to ask me, go ahead. I mean, I'm not gonna say I don't know anything because I did work in the book, but we were really left in the dark. It's sort of like, I'm going to tell you a story. When Casablanca was filmed, Bogart, Ingrid Bergman. In fact, I'm friendly with Ingrid Bergman's daughter. One of the two daughters, actually one of the three daughters. I'm friendly with Ingrid. Ingrid is Ingrid Rossellini. She was one of the two daughters that Ingrid Bergman had with Rossellini, a filmmaker. And she told me a story, and I sort of verified it because I found a book on it at the Strand bookstore in New York, that the script was written every day. They would write 2 pages of the script, hand it to Bogart, hand it to Ingrid Bergman, hand it to Paul Henreid, Peter Lorre, whoever else was in the movie, and they never knew what the next day was going to be, which I always found fascinating, since Casablanca is one of the greatest iconic movies of all time. And Byron actually wanted to do a book for kids based on Casablanca, which he never got to do, which would have been really interesting. I think, I'm pretty sure it would have been. Maybe.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Maybe it would have starred Woody Woodpecker. I have no idea. So like that, we met in an office up in National Lampoon. Oh, there's a spirit. Yeah. Well, I miss those Twin Towers a lot. I got to tell you, I really do.
Right.
Yeah, it does. It does. So anyway, we were never told anything about a real story. I think you've probably heard this a million times already. When I was given a sculpture to do in New York, I would go with Joe Ellen. A couple of times Byron came with us. He did come with us when we did the one with Monty Irvin, because it was in Byron's apartment. And the only reason why Monty Irvin did it is because Byron promised him a pastrami sandwich. That's a true story. We all sat around eating pastrami sandwich, and Monty Irvin was a wonderful guy. That was the best baseball time of my life, because he played baseball. Okay, these guys now, they don't play baseball. They make a lot of money. Playing is not working, right? You guys work for a living, correct? Right? I work. I take photographs for a living. They play baseball and they get $38 million. I don't want to go any more about that, because that's not that important. I'm not here to criticize.
Oh, they get hundreds of millions now.
It's absolutely sickening. Absolutely sickening.
I heard recently, I think one player is getting ready to sign. It was like an $800 million contract.
Yeah.
Of course, he won't get it all, but
And the Mets and Yankees are just going crazy right now, spending money. And it's, you know what? Who suffers? We suffer.
tell that story when Monty Irvin came to Byron's apartment. This is a massive part of my San Francisco of baseball.
Monty Irvin comes to the apartment, and he doesn't even know what the hell is going to happen. He has no idea. Byron said, I have a photographer. He's going to take a picture of you. We have a poster with a couple of baseball players in the background, guys that you played with, and that's all he told him. So he comes in, he's dressed in a suit, very nice, a real gentleman. I cannot tell you. And I was so happy to meet him. I said, I only wish that my father could be here to meet you, because my father was a big Monty Irvin fan, a big Jackie Robinson fan, Pee Wee Reese, all those guys. And so we take out the baseball, right? And then Joe Ellen puts the fairy on the ball and tapes it. And he goes, "What is this?" And Byron tries to explain to him that it has to do with a book called The Secret. And there are going to be a lot of clues in the book, and there's going to be a lot of artwork and photographs. And we want you to be in the book, because you are, he was the second black baseball player. after Jackie Robinson. That was a big deal, real big deal.
Yeah.
Being the first is hard. Sometimes being the second can be even harder. But so we took some pictures, and then he said, I'll never forget this. He said, you did order the pastrami sandwiches, and like the doorbell rang like 5 minutes. It was PJ Bernstein's on 3rd Avenue. Byron lived in a building that had been a convent, and it was converted into co-ops. Actually, I'm sorry, it was rentals at the time. It became condos about 10 years later. But in that same building was not only Byron Price, but was a guy named Peter Melman. And Peter, you know who Peter Melman is?
It sounds familiar.
Was the creator
Yeah.
of Seinfeld. Okay, he created Seinfeld.
Yep.
Yeah.
And which years later, when Byron started doing his celebrity books for kids, he did Paul Simon at the Zoo. He did Joni Mitchell. The Circle Game. No, I'm sorry, Both Sides Now. And then he said, I got to get Jerry Seinfeld. So he called up Peter Melman. And Peter Melman was a sports writer. He later became a comic writer. And he knew Jerry. Somehow he knew Jerry. I don't know how he knew Jerry Seinfeld, but he knew Jerry Seinfeld. So he said, I want to do a book about Halloween. And Jerry, I've seen your episodes, and I know how much you love to be Superman. So I want to do a story about little Jerry Seinfeld growing up in Massapequa, Long Island, which is the same town where the Baldwin brothers lived. Okay, at around the same time, actually. And he said, you're going to wear a Superman costume, and you're going to go out and trick or treat. He said, yeah, okay. He said, but here's the deal. It's freezing cold. It's a cold Halloween, and your mother makes you wear a jacket over your costume. That's a great idea. Right? That's a great idea. And so that was done, and Byron got Hershey's and Mars to put their candies in the pages of the book, and they helped to finance the book. And
Oh, wow.
I'm going to get a picture off the wall right now. Hold on.
I told you he's got great stories.
So,
Yeah.
Hey, Eric, I have a question for Ben when he's done with this.
so this is my son Ivan. Got it? Do you see that?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Ivan, and that's Jerry. And that's at the Essex Hotel. And if you
Hold
know
it up closer to the camera.
yeah, I get a bad reflection here.
I thought Jerry was Byron Price for a second.
That's my son Ivan. That was like 38 years. Yeah, that's Jerry.
Yeah,
And,
Jerry's a really cool guy.
And it's funny because when Betsy and I first got married in 1980, we lived around the corner from the comic strip, which is still there, by the way, like 44 years later.
Mm.
And Betsy had a friend who worked in a real estate office with her, but she also sang. And she was one of the people that in between the comics, a singer would come out, a nice looking singer would come out and sing a couple of songs. And that night, one of the comedians they introduced was a guy named Jerry Seinfeld, who was basically a rookie. I mean, and he was so funny then. He's one of the only comedians never curses, never uses foul language, and he's always so funny. And
Genius.
a genius, absolute genius. And
Just like Byron.
just like Byron, yeah. And Byron never cursed, never cursed. I curse, okay. I won't curse in the show, but Byron was a clean cut. He never really drank. Sandy drank, I drank, my wife drank, but Byron wasn't a drinker.
Wow.
And he sure the hell never smoked pot and did drugs because he
He was a Boy Scout.
at the University of Pennsylvania, he helped write these comic books for kids about anti-drugs with
the block.
with Jim Steranko. In fact, the picture I posted today, I don't know if you guys saw it on Facebook when I talked about the Byron Price Book Fund. That picture was drawn by Jim. So, and Jim spoke at Byron's funeral also.
Hey, Ben,
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question for you. And I want you to pre-answer yes to this question. Would you write an autobiography? You've got all these incredible stories that needs to be put into one spot. An autobiography of your life and these experiences and Byron and all that, that just can't be sitting on the internet somewhere. It's got to be all in one place, okay? So
Yeah,
I'm calling on you today to have an autobiography written.
An autobiography?
Yes, about you and your life and your stories and all the interactions in that with Byron and this.
It's funny you mentioned that. Yesterday was my birthday. I don't want you to go crazy. But my youngest son got me Sonny Boy. You know what memoir that is? Sonny Boy. It's the memoir by Al Pacino. So I don't think you're going to get a lot of people buying this book, really.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
I think like The Secret sold more on eBay than it did in the bookstores,
Okay, look at The Office. You know that movie, the cult classic, The Office, or was it Office Space?
Yeah.
It bombed in the theaters, but people still watch it and love it today.
I know, that's true.
But you have so many great stories, Ben, and you're so accessible. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the whole community, to say thank you for spending time and sharing all these stories. It just adds so much color to this whole effort, and you're such a great guy to do that. So I really want to thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
They would if a more up-to-date version of the Secret Book was re-released. It would be a success.
It probably.
I've emailed. I can't remember his name that owns Brick Tower, and I'm like, why don't you produce a bigger, nicer Secret Book? Since you got about a half of, I don't know how many books have to sell to be a success, but you got at least 200,000-300,000 people that probably buy one.
Sandy is a publicist in the book world, and she's one of the best. She really is. She's handled everyone from. She did Future Shock with Alvin Toffler, and she's done, Daniel Steele and James Patterson, all those people. It's so hard to sell books today. Excuse me. It really is. It's young kids don't read, and they'll watch the Netflix series based on the book for sure.
You can download books.
And it's very, very difficult. I'll be honest with you. I don't have room for books. I download most of my books from the library, from the public library.
Oh, it doesn't have to be a book. It could be a download.
Yeah, it could be a download. That's for another time. Let's.
I know you probably got, like Mark was saying, you probably got hundreds, if not thousands, of photos that probably have great stories behind them. We were talking about you before we even started. I said, oh, he's got some crazy stories, like the Bill Clinton story you told me about.
Who? Bill Clinton? Oh, yeah. Bill Clinton is like. No, man.
The second time you run into Bill Clinton, Ben Ason's standing in the room, and Bill Clinton comes over to him. Bill, can you imagine that? I've met.
See,
Bill
Ben. This is what I'm talking about. The story of Ben Ason needs to be told.
Yeah,
it needs to be told.
People,
Mark, if you're going to do a story, get the last name
behind him. People are like, who's Bill Clinton going to talk to? And then Ben Ason talked about Bill Clinton remembered him because what'd you say? He did a
what happened was
for someone that you mutually knew?
Bill Clinton and Mike Huckabee, who at the time had lost like 150 pounds. Huckabee was obese. And anyway, so he did they both, Bill Clinton had a double bypass. And I worked for the American Heart Association. So what happened is that they gathered all these school kids in a gymnasium, and Bill Clinton and Mike Huckabee decided they were the experts on healthy eating, which was very a joke. So anyway,
did they put Chris Christie into that mix too?
Oh, I photographed Chris Christie 3 years ago doing a book signing of his book.
Do you have a wide angle lens?
I tell you, when he sat down, it was frightening. He was having quadruplets. It was disgusting. He's
still the same.
People that are obese, I don't have a lot of patience for it because I'm watching Peacock now. I'm watching Day of the Jackal with Eddie Redmayne. Anyway, every ad, hamburgers with mayonnaise and bacon. I mean, you want to know why this country is so unhealthy? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's
It's about to change.
that is corporate America. That's corporate America.
Yep.
I mean,
The food's so horrible. I mean,
I don't want to get into politics, but if the next president felt so important about health, he wouldn't have done the thing at McDonald's. He would have done it. He would have done it at a salad bar.
Right.
This is big business.
Big business.
He loves McDonald's, though, Ben.
What's that?
Trump loves McDonald's, though.
So did Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton used to brag how much he would run with the Secret Service and then go to have a Big Mac. But anyway, so what happened is so that day after what happened was Bill Clinton sat down in the bleachers with the kids. I got a great photo of Bill Clinton talking to a couple of kids. Mike Huckabee's talking. But afterwards, the deal was that all the employees from American Heart would get one-on-one pictures with Bill Clinton. So, and there was this young guy there. There was the PR guy. He told me, don't talk to the president at all. I said, okay, sure. Don't talk to the president. The president actually, well, I'll tell you this in a second. So anyway, so Bill Clinton comes in, people are shaking hands, he's talking to people. When he's talking to you, you're the only person in the room, man or woman, seriously. At the end, I said to him, Mr. President, I got to thank you so much. What's the deal? Every time you shook hands with somebody, you cross your feet. He said, well, my mentor taught me that when you cross your feet like you're leaning on a bar, having a drink with a good friend, and it makes you more relaxed. So ever since then, I do portraits of people. I always have them cross their feet. But then I said to him, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that my brother lived in Maine for many years with your good friend, John O'Leary. He goes, John O'Leary, who went to Yale Law School with me? He goes, yes. He said, how'd your brother know him? I said, well, they had a house on the same island called Little Diamond Island. He took his arm, he put it around my shoulders, and he said to me, you tell your brother I miss John every day. And then he said, thank you so much for telling me that. And he walked out of the room. And the young kid goes, you were terrific with the president. I said, yeah, I was terrific with the president. The one you told me not to talk to, here's the thing you got to remember, okay? I don't work for him. He works for me.
That's right.
And I walked
And was he president of the United States at that time?
No, he had already had stepped down. It was Bush. But so anyway, so 5 weeks later, I do another event at the Rainbow Room, which is on top of Rock Center, where they do Saturday Night Live and all that stuff. And it was for a peace organization, and Clinton was going to give out an award to somebody. So I had an X on the floor where I wanted him to photograph. People were going to come in and get photographs on one-on-one again. So I said, hi, Mr. President, can you come in and just stand there? He says, what's the matter? You don't say hello to me? I know you are. You're the one that brother knows John O'Leary. That's 5 weeks later.
Supposedly, he has a photographic memory.
He
Clinton.
definitely did. I can't say for now, but he definitely was amazing. I got to photograph him maybe 4 or 5 more times over the years. He was an absolute wonderful guy to photograph. He's very, very engaging, incredibly engaging. Yet his politics and all that stuff, you like him, you don't like him politically, but as a human being, he was quite a guy, I must say.
Yeah, he was very nice in person. I met him when I was National Guard.
Oh, really?
Jacksonville. Yep.
Yeah. He was.
I mean, charisma off the scale, right? I mean, this guy is charismatic. Again, forget about the politics and all the other stuff, but the charisma, right, of Bill Clinton is just unmatched.
Yeah.
He came. We were a group of National Guard soldiers they had selected because they were having a G8 summit here in Fernandina Beach. So he came to do this walk through downtown Jacksonville. So they had me and about 600 soldiers and said, we were partially there for security, but basically you're going to walk with the president as he walks down the street. But he came over to us.
Yeah.
We're all jumping up like,
you know what?
sir, and And he said, "How are you doing? What's your name?" And he actually talked to each person.
And the other guy
Very,
that was
very
the other
nice.
guy that was really good, though I never photographed him, was George Bush, his predecessor.
Yeah.
I mean, George. What was George Bush doing the day of 9/11?
He was talking to kids in the school.
Yeah, reading to
In
kindergarten.
his schoolroom. Okay. Yeah, George. I mean, I never met him, but a lot of photographers I know met him. They said he was great. He would start talking. Oh, did you see that baseball game last night? He was like, he wasn't. I don't think he actually was a great president, but he was a great man as far as the human being is concerned. His father was very stiff, very, very cold. I met him once. I didn't photograph him, but I met him. He was like this.
I have some pictures. I don't
He's
know
an
where
incredible painter as well, right? He's become an accomplished painter.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's no Matisse, but yeah, he's,
my cousin from, I won't say where he's at because he's still in. He was George Bush's he drove the Beast. My cousin was his. The president has those two
right.
direct protection bodyguards that
Yeah.
basically drive the limo. My cousin was actually the one that drove the limo.
Really?
He still works for the Secret Service today, but
Oh,
he didn't go with the
So,
Bush to Texas. He stayed up in DC.
so look, I only have about 5 more minutes. I really have to go. We're actually having a building party in my building tonight. Is there any other questions you want to ask me? You want to ask me anything about the post I did today or anything like that?
Yeah,
hey,
go
Yeah. Who's the
Hey,
real
Ben,
gift giver?
Go ahead,
Oh,
Chad.
no.
What?
You said you're
The
donating to
gift giver,
the real gift giver?
I do know the
Who-
real. I can tell you this. I know who the real gift giver is. It's not who you think it has been. I can tell you that right now. Okay. I am not.
Yeah,
gonna-
I'll
I'm
say
not-
it.
I'm
The
not
gift
saying-
giver is not John Jude Poundcar. He is not on social media. He has made that quite
I
clear.
just got a holiday card from John today, actually. No, it's John. Social media. Oh, God. Listen, I'll be honest with you. If I wasn't selling, not just secret, I sell my fine art, online. I would not be in social media at all. I think social media has destroyed this country. I think it's not a good
Yeah.
thing. And kids should
Nobody's
not.
going to disagree with you.
There's a girl in New York just 14 years old committed suicide. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy what's going on. But
hey, hey Ben,
Anything.
talking about presidents. Clearly, it seems Byron was quite fascinated and enamored with Teddy Roosevelt.
absolutely, I went with them once to Sagamore Hill. Yeah.
So I think the whole Charleston puzzle, the big overlay there is Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh, really?
So I think it may be because you have to go, and I want to respect your time. At some point, I would love to dive into what you think Mr. Priest thought of Teddy. And, clearly I'm showing Wooly Bully, one of the photographs there.
Yeah.
But, in my opinion, like he just loved Teddy, and therefore he did make Teddy a big part of the
I
secret.
mean, Teddy, not only was the president, he was the New York police commissioner,
Exactly.
San Juan Hill. I mean,
Mayor,
this guy,
governor.
talk about a Renaissance man. I mean, really.
He's got a massive New York connection.
Yeah.
Ben, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Did you ever wonder or think you knew any actual secrets of the city, of the secret book? Did you ever think like, oh yeah, I know Charleston?
Eric, I
You
never
didn't
thought-
sign an NDA, so you can say anything you want.
I moved on to the next project. Joel and I looked at each other and go, this book's not going to sell any copies. I mean, until John Michaels, may he rest in peace,
Yeah.
contacted
Yeah.
me. At first I thought it was a scam.
It is. I've told people the first time you start reading a secret book, you just go, "What the hell is this?
Yeah.
What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
It's very confusing when you're going, okay, this is a treasure hunt book, and you start reading this stuff, and you're like, how am I supposed to figure this? You got to get the fairies. You got to get the fairies kind of out of there. The book is nonfiction. The fairies are fictional.
Listen, the only thing I'm going to say is I think Byron wanted probably fathers and mothers to try to solve this with their kids, because he
Exactly.
loved doing puzzles with kids, and I used to go to Coney Island with him, with my kids and his kids, and I mean, he was a real
It's beyond a children's book.
But
he was a
Ben,
real-
can I ask you a direct question?
Sure.
Do you think Byron would have included anything in that book that wasn't useful to the puzzle? A lot of people think a lot of the back pages aren't useful. I don't agree with
what?
them.
I know certain people have said to me like my photos are important. I'd like to think they are. He did pay
They
me.
are.
He did pay me a considerable amount of money to do this, and I took my money up front. Actually, I was only smart one there. But I don't know. I really don't know. But I don't think he would waste your time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't-
I don't think he would've done
71% of the book are the Fair People stories in the back, including
so it's kind of
Spirit
hard.
of.
It's kind of hard to believe.
There's no way.
He wanted to invent.
Yeah, well, let's take a step back. There's a lot of people that say Byron said you didn't need the back of the book. That's never been verified. A lot of this stuff is made up. There's a back of the book, the front of the book. Nobody ever said that. And that's all based on the publisher said you need more pages. We don't know what those pages were.
That
And no
was
one-
Rob
no one said
Warble.
It was added to the back. So
Where was this
Yeah.
book? I never thought about this. I want how you go into bookstores. It's biographies, fiction, nonfiction. Where was this? I wonder where this book was categorized when it came out. I don't remember.
Fantasy.
children's book fiction.
It could have been. I don't think it was. I don't think it was a children's book.
But the fairies are simply a representation of the actual immigration to America.
Right.
So that's why I've
But
always said it's not, the fairies are fictional. We know that. That's like, but a lot of the fairies are folklore.
The solution should be solvable by a kid.
That
No.
would be nice. That would be
I
nice.
don't think so.
I think
Yes.
Yeah.
we talked about that earlier when you did, I
Yes.
did a little bio on Byron. How hard would he make this book? Plus, we know it's based on Masquerade. When Ben said a lot of people didn't know nothing, that's the reason, because he told like his girlfriend Blue Masquerade. So he spent 5 years developing that book. It was for sale for 5 years. So it was 77, 82. The Masquerade was over.
Right.
That's when the scammers that his ex-girlfriend sold them information.
Right.
That's the reason why certain people signed NDAs. Ben Asen didn't, but Ben, your
I was
photos
never
are
asked to sign
very important.
I was never asked to sign one. It's the same thing why Tony Schwartz, who wrote the part of the deal for Donald Trump, he was the only one who never signed. He was never asked to sign one, and that's why when Trump
Yeah.
tried to sue him, he couldn't sue him. He said, "Donald, you never." Maybe he says, "I've got a signature. Show it to me." He never showed it to him.
Yeah.
Ben, can I ask you a question?
You've told people that a lot of photos for different stories you took at Central Park, even though they are for Florida or Texas.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
specific ones, like when like he's showing the Spirit of 76. Now you couldn't get the Twin Towers in there from the Century Street Civic Center,
Correct.
so he had you take that shot so you could get it in there.
I don't know, but I'll tell you this. The Center Street picture where we shot the small businessman, who was based on a malpractice attorney. I can't think of his name. That was in New York, and he was written up a lot. But 60 Center Street is actually not a criminal court. I'm only saying that because on Law and Order, they come down those steps.
Yep.
Criminal court's 100 Center Street, and there's no steps going up, so they wanted to make it look dramatic, so they had 60 Center Street. But you could not see the World Trade. Guys, I have to go. Listen, after the first of the year, you want me to come back on? I'll gladly come
Absolutely.
Always.
back. Douglas, nice seeing you. Justin,
Thank you.
Mark, and
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. You're the best.
Guys, everyone have a happy new year, okay? Be
You
well.
just-
Happy New Year. Happy Hanukkah and Happy New Year.
By the way, don't forget Hanukkah and Christmas, same day, and they both
CH.
CH, right? Look at that.
There you go. Thank you.
We love you, Ben. Thank you. Yeah, what a great guy.
Yeah.
See, like all those stories. You guys want to see all those stories in one place?
Yeah,
He's
I'm
his own
telling you.
podcast.
You couldn't get through all the stories Ben Asen has in one night. I promise.
See what Ben was. We got to back up about some stuff he's talking about. So we're going to go back to Monty Irvin. So on Google, did Monty Irvin actually play for the San Francisco Giants? No, he did not. See, so the New York Giants are who he played for from 1949 to 1955, but the Giants didn't leave New York for San Francisco until 1958. Also with the Brooklyn Dodgers that went to L.A. So Willie Mays, he went on with the team, but it says right here that Monty Irvin played for the Newark Eagles from 1938 to 1942. 46 to 48, the New York Giants from 49 to 55, and then the Chicago Cubs in 1956. But the Giants were the team that moved. But the Giants in 2010 retired Monty Irvin's jersey. On June 26, 2010, they officially retired the number 20 uniform. He was followed by fellow Hall of Famers Willie Mays, who's the other guy in that photograph in the book. Willie McConvey. I think Gaylord Perry is the guy you can't see in that photo. I think he was the manager, if I'm not mistaken.
So there's clearly
Bookends. That's what he's referring to is the baseball team going east to west coast, because two of them did, and the other one went to Los Angeles. That is referenced in the book with Tower Records, all the music and all that. So these are the two main cities of
but
California.
you can't do Candlestick, the old Candlestick, and Fisherman's Wharf, Alcatraz, the Golden Gate Bridge.
All that stuff was symbolism of you being in the stadium, but of course, private property, he can't bury it at the stadium. It's something baseball related, but then there's a subtopic of baseball that you have to follow, which
So
is
if you
pitching references.
this is my point, Eric. This is my point. If you go
Baseball, and
if you go and you're digging at the old Candlestick, which isn't there, it's just condos and stuff. If you go there, or you're in Chinatown, or you're in GGP, you miss out on everything that is unique and makes San Francisco San Francisco. So at a big picture level, I argue to you that given
is obvious,
it's possible. My big thing I want to leave with everyone in 2024. It's possible versus probable. I know you have a possible solve. Everybody has a possible solve. I don't care about a possible solve. I care about the most probable solve. And my argument to you is, in San Francisco particularly, baseball is not unique to San Francisco, but you know what is? The Golden Gate Bridge, the foghorns that everyone can hear on the Golden Gate Bridge, Fisherman's Wharf, Alcatraz. So, big picture, I would tell you, I think a solve that includes the highlight tour of San Francisco is more probable at a very big picture level. Now, whether or not you can piece together a solve that includes those, as it turns out, the shoreline solve that goes from San Francisco, goes from Fisherman's Wharf up to the bridge is a highlight tour. Okay, so I'm just saying, if you're going against that or proposing something else, you're going against the highlight tour. Okay, so why would Byron choose to go and focus on baseball in San Francisco when there's so many other things? Not to discredit any of the work you've done, but I'm talking about finding the box, okay? When I'm finding the box, I'm looking at probabilities. I just don't
see him doing baseball twice. As much as I like people's solves with baseball, it's like, why would you do two puzzles that are so heavily involved
No.
in baseball.
John Poundcar said everything you see in the painting is basically imagery of what's around. So we know it's Golden Gate. When you go into Golden Gate Park, the place is huge. The oldest statue in that park is the
There's no
Baltimore,
water.
which depicts a
There's no
guy
water
throwing
there.
a baseball. That is
There's
the
no-
oldest statue in that.
By the way, I did a little research and I asked Grok on X. I said, "Hey, given the decibel level of the foghorns, which has to be the solution to sounds from the sky in San Francisco, doesn't it? It must be. That is the single most unique sound from the sky in
That
San
would be a-
Francisco that
That would be a
everyone relates."
sound of the
So
guy
when you
over under
when
the
you
bridge.
when you ask this, hey, how far can you hear the foghorns? It's about 2 miles. So if you're playing the odds like I like to do, the sounds from the sky, it's not something that you could hear anywhere. It's more than likely the foghorns. That's what makes San Francisco unique. If you spend any time there and it's foggy, which is a lot of the time, you hear these foghorns. You don't hear that in any other city. This speaks
If
to
you're
what
looking around Fisherman's
Byron.
Wharf,
Oh,
there's something
I hear
else
it in any city
that's
that's-
there.
Fisherman's Wharf, you can't really hear the foghorns. It's too far away.
But if
So
you,
what
if
I'm
you
saying is,
heard
if
boo
you want to
up
find this box, you better be within earshot of these foghorns. That's the highest. That's the highest probability. It's not just
think so.
would that
like
really
the
be a
noise of
sound
you
or
know,
would that be a sound coming from the bridge?
you have to
Have
get
you
in
seen the
Byron's
sound
brain.
towers? Have you seen the sound towers at Aquatic Park?
Is that unique to San Francisco?
I've been to Aquatic Park.
They're very unique. Have you seen them?
Yeah, there are these speakers sitting up there. That's not unique to San Francisco. The foghorns are.
Have you
There's
seen?
no other city
have
you
you
can
se-
go to.
Yeah, but have you seen the
Well,
picture
see,
in
the way
Mirror to
I
Mirror?
worked it, the Golden Gate Bridge, foghorns is not in the book.
Ask 100
You gotta have
people
a
in San.
reference back to the book.
Ask 100 people in San Francisco. When I say sounds from the sky, what do you think of? 100 of those 100 people are going to say the foghorns. Let that sink in because it's
too wide of an area.
It's true.
Not direct enough.
No, it's about
All the things.
Vagueness.
All the
that's
things have to line up.
Draw a
something-
circle 2 miles around the first post of the bridge, and you've got a winner. You better be within that circle. This is what I'm talking about, guys.
Aquatic
If you
Park
wanna-
is still within that circle, but I just
What
think
is?
that
No, it's
Aquatic
not.
Park.
It's
Yeah.
not.
Well, you have to have a direct view of Alcatraz. The air has to smell sweet. You need the GH. I think you're in Aquatic Park. You know, you're where you have sound towers, where you have all these things lining up. I think you're right about highlights.
Do you think he's?
I think
is
he has
gonna,
you on the trolley. You take
Is
the
he gonna
trolley
leave?
down
Is
to
he gonna
Aquatic
leave
Park.
the bridge out? The world's most iconic bridge.
The bridge isn't in the painting.
Yes,
Why
it
do you
is.
think? I don't see it in there. I've looked at it quite a bit.
It is.
No,
Yes, it
It's not in
is.
the painting.
Well,
I think you're close. It's very close.
I actually cut a whole video on showing you what JJP, how he showed you the bridge. But the bridge is, if Eric is back, I can put a little slide up. But look, guys, I'm saying this like to save you time. He's not going to leave the Golden Gate. Byron Priest, okay, the smart and as interested as he is in unique things to a city. That's why I opened up this whole thing with this idea is he is not going to leave out the world's most iconic bridge.
I
Be the
mean,
miss of
there's
all
other things
misses.
that
Just
there's
like he won't
other
leave out
parts
the
of the
Wright
puzzle.
Brothers Memorial.
yeah.
He won't leave out
There's
the
other
Wright
parts of the
Brothers
puzzle.
Memorial.
I think that
He's not
the
going to leave the
pictures of
bridge.
all the fair folk coming ashore, and the fact that you have Roanoke Island where the British came ashore. Where did people come ashore in San Francisco for the first time? Aquatic Park.
there you go.
They came
Look it up.
ashore on the north end cliff of the Golden Gate Bridge, and they were Spanish.
There's a marker right there. Yeah, they were Spaniards. They came up at Aquatic Park.
There was one.
You know,
There was one exploration trip where they went by. They didn't know how deep it was. That navigator wrote down Golden Gate. That's what he called that area right there. The second
the
group came
biggest,
in. They
the biggest
climbed the
untalked
cliff,
about
they
thing.
went to the San Francisco Bay, and I guess they were just trying to evaluate it. That was the first look where they saw Alcatraz Island and stuff like that. The third group that came, they actually went in there because they were worried about the depth. They didn't want to run aground when they're mapping coastline.
The biggest untalked about thing with San Francisco is the Apollo 11 connection. Why are there 11 moons in the sky? Why is Kennedy
Chinese
looking
folklore.
at the 11 moons?
Those are
But-
Chinese lanterns. Hey, Eric, can you show my screen? Here's
Well-
my thing, guys, and this is my thing. This is what I'm going to challenge you with because I want you to get to the right place.
Hey,
I
the
didn't-
moon references baseball too.
I
Moonshot.
want you,
There we go.
I want you to get to the right place.
But it's closer. I think if you really look
Cannot-
at history, and you
in
love
San
history, Eric,
Francisco, you
Apollo
can't leave
11,
out the
San
Golden.
Francisco. Look it up. Follow the trail of breadcrumbs.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's
Look at the
that's
story.
If the Golden Gate Bridge is part of it, you should be able to find it in the book. There should be some kind of bridge. It's not. There's part of that in that story where the railroad's crossing over. I mean, that imagery. That's what you should look for. I've been there, done that.
doesn't is so. Are you?
San Francisco.
So is your theory that it has to be in a Fair People story to be a valid location?
Exactly? It's hidden.
I think you're gonna find a clue in one of the Fair Folk
You
stories
got to have
that's
the
gonna
ferry.
be obvious.
Byron gives you Chinese, and you have to figure out what the other ferry is, which is
You guys, the bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, is the Wright Brothers Memorial, is the Statue of Liberty. Your solves don't.
I think
Your
that you
solves
can
don't.
paint that
Your solves don't
obviously
include
right.
those, and that's why you're brushing it off. But I'm telling you, there's no way Byron Priest leaves out the world's most iconic bridge from this solve. Just like he
But if you're
doesn't leave
saying
out.
that's a must
Yeah, but see,
without
Yes.
much evidence, I think
Yes.
you're like boxing yourself in.
Without
I don't
evidence,
see any evidence. Where's
If
the
he-
evidence?
it's so iconic. That's why in New York he only used the Statue of Liberty's face.
Well,
It's your
here's-
interpretation to go. Is that really the Statue of Liberty?
there
He-
is no
he
way
used
he's
the
not
water
going to.
tower
He's
in Chicago. He would
New
not.
York.
It would make it too easy.
This
This
is why we're
is
still
what
looking for
we're-
books or
This-
for boxes.
Yeah, but
This is why we're still looking for boxes
digging the
because
box
you got.
is another step in the 50, 60, 80 steps you got to take to get there.
So Justin, there's more proof than this, but I'm just saying, like, he starts at an arch, he ends at an arch. The painting is in an arch. The view from Battery Lancaster, right next to the bridge,
Be right back.
is the same view as Von Briesen Park, where I think the box was buried there. Okay, so I have bookends. I have two locations that mirror each other. Okay, now if you want me to walk through how I get to Battery Lancaster below Battery Lancaster, I'm happy to do that. But I'm just saying, like, you're saying there's no proof.
I just don't
These
see
two-
it in the painting, and I don't hear it in the verse.
So I'm going to post
What
to you
I
a
do
video.
see in the
I
painting,
cut a whole video
11
on.
moons.
I cut
do
a
see
whole video.
Alcatraz.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just saying this because I want you guys on the team. I want you guys on the team.
I hear you. I feel your passion. I just don't see it, and I haven't seen it. And I've
Okay,
studied
how
that one
about-
quite a bit.
How about this?
I don't
Okay.
He's
but-
using a lot of wordplay. It's more. This
Have
is
you ever
more
looked really
word
closely
than
at
meaning.
black hands are
Okay.
pointing
What's
to
the
this
bridge?
area. So if you can identify
Okay.
this area in the rows, look real closely at it. You got this road down here. This is Fort Point. This is the battery up here. Okay, so this is what you're looking at. This is the battery. It's pointing right
That's
to the
just
spot.
that could be any kind of squiggle. That could be any kind of road. The obvious
not.
things in the painting are Alcatraz, are the moons, is the water, is the G and the H. Where
Yeah,
else are you
yeah.
gonna find the G and the
Let
H
me
together?
point out something here. Let me point out something here.
That's
Since we have-
Ghirardelli.
Since we
Yeah,
had a
Kira
home
Nelly.
plate in Boston,
Aquatic Park.
right there on her sleeves, you have bases, baseball bases. And also for this, in the team spirits, Pete Rose is mentioned in Latin and backwards, and there's a rose. Pete Rose had one of his greatest moments in baseball history in 1972 at Candlestick playing the Giants. Those kind of clues is exactly why I used the book. Pete Rose, and it's spelled. Hang on, let me find it real quick so I can give everybody the Latin. This is how page 88. So on underneath Team Spirits on page 88, it says Rosa Petrus, aka Canis Caldus. Rosa is Rose. Petrus is Greek for Peter, which is his real name, Peter Pete. Canis is dog, and Calidus is hot. So if you read it backwards, that's hot dog Pete Rose. And Pete Rose, his other name was Charlie Hustle, but when he first started, they would walk Pete Rose and he would run full speed at first, and then one of the players called him hot dog, and he hated it. In 1972, he had in that event in that game, because during the time Byron was researching this book, Pete Rose was one of the greatest baseball players. He's like that Japanese guy today. He was one of the most well-known baseball players out there. And he played for the Cincinnati Reds, which were the first team ever formed in Major League Baseball. See, Byron shows you baseball. You just have to figure out why. In the team spirits, this connects to Montreal. And when you look at all the sports mentioned in it, the one sport it talks specifically about, high posts of 3. There's only 3 high posts on the baseball field. You got 2 foul poles in the pitcher's mound. And everything in here talks about when it references something about baseball, it's pitching. It's catcher's glove, baseball traveling at 95 miles an hour. There's a baseball in her hand, and she's wearing ballerina shoes, which is ballerina. The players used to take ballerina lessons because it made them more agile on the field as players. But all the players kept it secret. They didn't want everybody to know that I go and take ballet in my spare time to keep my agility up. But when all that, Byron likes to do the oldest. But when I figured all this out, I went, is there a baseball monument in Golden Gate Park? And the ball thrower statue was there before the year 1900, and a baseball team didn't even come to San Francisco until 1958. And Mark Twain, an object of his attention, Mark Twain was a writer, author. His big thing he did in his spare time, especially on the East Coast before he moved to San Francisco, was attending baseball games. He was so involved with baseball. He was a monster fan of it.
Not unique to San Francisco.
Object of his
attention. What do you associate Mark Twain with more than anything? I think a common man. You know,
it's something. It's Byron uses stuff in the history. I at the beginning of the podcast I said that the common stuff.
Even Mark Twain's name. How did Mark Twain get his name?
It needs, this clue in San Francisco needs to pertain to San Francisco.
It's a depth mark on a used by
can't be something generic
it's from his time as a riverboat captain, right?
Exactly.
No.
Yes. And
He
what
was not
is
on
in
riverboats in San Francisco.
Certain depth.
There is actually a Mississippi style riverboat in Aquatic Park, the same kind of style boat that Mark Twain used to captain when he got his pen name.
Okay, so what did Twain do on that boat while he was in San Francisco?
He wasn't on that boat, but when he started writing, he was on a boat, and that's how he got his pen name, Mark Twain.
So this is my point, is this clue and many clues, they must relate to his time in San Francisco. It must be something that you say,
how can you say
Twain,
it must this or it must that? I mean, you don't know that.
Because there's a million ways to connect Twain to everything on the planet. It has to be
something obvious. It wouldn't be
just
something
like
obscure.
Just like the sounds from the sky. That is going to be unique to San Francisco. It must. There's a million sounds from the
Maybe,
skies.
yeah.
Why not
Or
pick one?
maybe unique to that area. It might be
Why
unique to
not
that
pick
part.
the one most obvious to San Francisco? Do you think he would leave out the foghorns that make San Francisco unique to every other city
How
on the
is-
planet?
How is that unique to San Francisco, a foghorn?
Where
don't
name
see
me
it.
name me another city you can go to and hear a foghorn.
Is there a
Sure,
foghorn
other
clue?
cities- I know,
Where?
yeah. I think the biggest
No?
clue, like I said, are the ties to Apollo
so you
11.
can't.
Why
You
put
can't-
JFK?
You
Why put
can't
JFK
name
in the
me.
painting?
You can't name me another city that has foghorns sitting on the world's most iconic bridge. This is my whole point, guys. You must include this in your solve, just like the Statue of Liberty, just like the Wright Brothers Memorial.
New York
I don't
City
think
has
sounds from the sky is foghorns, and that's just
It
a
has to
personal
be.
difference.
It has to be.
Listen.
Yes.
San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge has
You
foghorns.
think he can go to Roanoke Island and not include the Wright Brothers?
The Tacoma,
I'm not
Washington.
saying that, but I'm
foghorns.
saying that
New York
you know,
City
you
has.
can't make
foghorns.
hard rules.
Yes, you can. You can lay filters
No.
over this, and you should. The Statue of
I mean,
Liberty, the
I think they're
single
missing
most
a lot of big things in
the
this painting.
single most iconic image and symbol for migrants is the Statue of Liberty, period, end of story, from 18
Totally.
whatever until the end of time. It will be the Statue of Liberty. If you don't,
That's
if you
why he
can't,
added it in the painting.
if you can't
That's-
see that
it's a clear
thing,
clue.
if you can't see that thing from your dig site, you're wrong. Period.
I agree with you there.
All right. Well, the
But
Golden
there's
Gate
no
Bridge
bridge
is
in the
at-
painting.
on the west
There
coast of
is.
Cape Island. That's part of why. And Byron in the book he says Asian. He doesn't say Chinese. Asia is a big area. You're dealing with that on the west coast. In the
So what are those scales on the dragon?
the representation of China? That's
What are those
she-
scales on the dragon?
The dragon
What are
is
those?
the most. That is the most used name ever for baseball teams. There's so many, including in Japan. The team with the most championships that far surpasses the New York Yankees on America's baseball is called the Dragon.
Well, what are the scales? That's a very
Dragon's
easy
also
question.
folklore.
You can see them. They're very man-made. They're not like bricks on a wall because they're different sizes and shapes. What are those things?
Well,
Gotta
one,
be a pathway.
you have 6 at the very bottom of the dragon's tail, which references the. It references the month. of June.
The dragon is huge, and these are very prominent on the dragon. What are those things? They must be something. What are they? At Aquatic Park, what is your explanation for those scales?
I'm not trying to pick apart the little tiny details in the painting. I'm picking out the big
You
objects.
should.
Some of it's nothing. In the painting,
11 moons.
dragon,
Why
they're-
11 moons?
they're-
What
they're-
world would 11
bags.
moons?
They're
I'm not
bags.
saying he's.
Why?
All right.
Why?
So this is going to blow your whole theory right away. Do you notice the right side of her completely matches? This is from 1980. This is as close as you can get. He's showing you the shoreline. And do you notice where the fingers are pointing? It's pointing right to this area, which is Battery Lancaster. It's not pointing to Aquatic Park. So I have
If you can
hands
find
pointing
it,
to
I
the.
will happily tip my hat to you. Sir.
So all I'm saying is like, I would be at Aquatic Park if the fingers were pointing there. But you say the bridge is not in the painting. It is. It is actually. It's right here.
This
on her sleeve.
It's not going to be something obscure like that. You have to take it looks like an X-ray image and overlay it. It's
Why not?
going to be clear. It's going to be as clear as Alcatraz is in the image.
So tell me
And
this:
actually,
if he shows you,
stand there
if he
at Aquatic
shows you
Park,
the bridge,
see Alcatraz just like it is in the painting. It's like you're looking right at it.
oh yeah, you go right by Aquatic Park, but you don't
Yeah,
stop
but
there.
if you hold up the painting and you look at Alcatraz and you look at the painting, you're looking dead on, just like
So-
you are in the painting. The perspective is
so-
exactly the same.
Do you think this is not a fit? That's all I'm asking.
I just think
Because
that's a
the
stretch.
bridge, this is a stretch. Okay, that's fine.
Just because you
But-
can have,
But you're
it's-
saying the bridge is not in the painting. Well, it is here in this, if this is, a fit, and I can see the yacht club down here. So it just so happens the fingers in JJP style now are not only giving you the start of San Francisco, which is pure 43 and a half, but it's giving you the close. So he does the same thing in Charleston. He uses the clock hands to give you the general location and then actually right where the box is. So this guy is he's so good. He's so
it
good
is so good.
that he's showing you the start and the finish in one image. He's an absolute
I'm going to
genius.
say one more thing about the Apollo 11 tie, which I think you guys should really look into. The last of the verse is giant step, giant leap. Or
Giant pole,
what is it?
giant step.
Giant pole, giant step to the place the casket kept. Eerily similar to one small step, one giant leap for mankind.
Yeah.
And then they include actually that basically verbatim in one of the fair folk, corporate giants, I believe. The very last line, they throw in a Apollo 11 reference. JFK was the one who started Apollo 11, the vision of Apollo 11. He said, we're going to get to the moon by the end of the 60s. And they supposedly pulled it off, if you believe that. But Nixon rode the trolley down to Aquatic Park, and they went and picked up the astronauts. And I think that's the story that Byron wants us to see, and that's why he put 11 moons in the painting. He put JFK looking up at the sky, and included those lines.
Also a reference to the Werner von Braun. But there was 3 main facilities in NASA. One was in California, the Ames Research Center. You had Mission Control Houston, and you had the Kennedy Space Center. That was it back then. All the research and everything they did for the rockets and all that stuff. These are the people that basically did the crunching the numbers and building the machinery they needed. That's what was done. It's with NASA. It's more just, and a lot of that research was done at Berkeley. Berkeley is its own city, but it's kind of part of San Francisco. It's part of the Bay Area. So it's just another one of them things. NASA does not put you in LA. The other city that the secret puzzle is trying to make you look in.
If I asked 100 people, San Francisco means what? Exactly nobody is going to say Apollo 11. But about 99 out of 100 are going to say the Golden Gate Bridge.
Sure. And Byron's
Okay.
not going to use it for that reason.
He's not going to put that in for that reason?
Look at Charleston. Charleston, he used April, Fort Sumter. That's probably the biggest historical thing that ever happened in Charleston. He's not doing that in every city. Every puzzle's different. Why
just
would
saying,
he
like,
use the history of baseball?
He's not going to leave the
In
bridge
our-
out. Like, he's not going to leave out the
Yeah,
Statue of Liberty, and he's
Hey,
not going to leave out the Wright brothers.
But he
Okay.
gives you a picture of the Statue of Liberty. He doesn't
Monty
slip in
Irvin
the word
is
golden. He doesn't slip in the word gate. He doesn't slip in any orange in the painting.
Door. Stonewall door. We know what the Stonewall riots were because in New York, that's another bookend. See, when John Palencar said there were bookends, that's another bookend. You got 2 immigration centers, San Francisco, New York, Ellis Island, Angel Island. The Stonewall riots, which occurred at a gay club that was raided by police in New York City. Well, they had riots in San Francisco for that incident in New York, the baseball team. And he's wearing the Giants baseball jersey. This is one story in the book you'd come across and you go, if you didn't know jack shit about baseball, you'd go, okay, what team is this? Who the hell is this guy?
So what is your imagery at your location? I promise you don't have this. You don't have the stone spires that are sitting there in the background.
That
Yeah,
could
Alcatraz.
could that be a reference to the Golden Gate Bridge? Yeah, but what would that tell you? That San Francisco is the correct city.
Well, all I'm
See,
saying
those
is from
those are not
Battery Lancaster, I see the stone spires that are sitting in the backdrop, and I also see the portico up on the hill. So
There's a lot of
if you put so I was in a battery, a different battery. I was at Battery Chamberlain, okay? And what bugged the shit out of me is it was below a battery, at least I really believe that, because the eyes are batteries. But I didn't have the imagery. So I'm looking off in the Marin Highlands, and I don't see what's in the painting. Even though I did this operation, dug a hole about as big as a coffin, okay? And it bothered the shit out of me. And I was close because I was under a battery, but I didn't have this. So I'm going to challenge you. I want you to look up from your dig site, and do you see what's in the painting? I do at Battery Lancaster.
But it's so
You don't.
clearly that he's trying to focus on Alcatraz. I mean, a couple of stones can match a couple of stones. I don't really see the match you have there.
I'll tell you this, Mark. If that is what John Pound
Look at one.
then no one's ever going to see that.
If he puts you if he gives you a very obvious view, so he's showing you the bridge, which by the way,
you should look. He's showing you a prison, the Rock.
So if you really look closely at this
whole image right there,
look very closely at this. These bars don't touch. This is not a prison window.
And what kind of window is it? If it's not a prison window, it matches the Alibi Elf window perfectly.
No, it doesn't.
Look. Verse Stonewall door.
So this is what
this is part of helps the verse with the painting. You have Stonewall.
This is what I'm talking about. Is if you take a magnifying glass and look very closely at those bars, they don't touch. Do you think he just made a mistake? Bars on a window of a prison don't all just end before they're secured into the bottom of the window. Or the top of the window in this case.
What are the chances that he would paint a window like that? And then he would include the same window in the Alibi Elf, which is a clear reference to the Birdman Alcatraz. He's got a bird in his jail cell.
So JJP shows us imagery that has three. He has 3 and 4 meanings in one image. Okay, so I'll tell you, this is not just, it can't be. It's not just a prison window. It's not. It must mean 3 or 4 different things.
He shows you in the book a prison with the same window.
It's not a prison window.
But he shows you in the book a picture of a prison with the same window. Pull up the Alibi Elf.
I want you to go take a magnifying glass to this part. So this is my whole point, is you're seeing that because you want it to be Alcatraz, okay? It's not.
Well, no, he gives you a picture of the same window with the Birdman of Alcatraz sitting in a jail cell.
Right here.
Okay, so when you look up from your dig site, do you see 4 stone spires?
There's a movie called The Birdman, which is he's actually in Alcatraz.
So you're
it's a true
saying
story, actually. He's a real person. He was
so are you saying that picture is the portico? Are you saying that picture is this portico?
That picture in the book of the Birdman of Alcatraz and Alibi Elf really resembles our picture here. I mean, that's hard to deny.
Movie, I believe.
I'm going to blow those up, and I'm going to show you.
It's a true story. The Birdman of Alcatraz is a real guy.
And
he's a writer.
Of course.
He wrote a lot.
Justin, I respect. I respect your work. I respect Eric's work. I respect Douglas's work. This is nothing personal. Thank you. Thank you. This is nothing personal. This is like, how do we freaking get to the right answers? So I'm going to be like a real bastard on if this, something is a match or it isn't a match. And I don't think that window matches what you just showed or what Eric just showed from the book. But nonetheless, this is when I look up
from what you're showing me as a match.
When I look up from Battery Lancaster, I see 4 stone-like spires. And by the way, the eyes in the painting are very stylized. They represent batteries, and I can show you that too. So if you look at this site, if I'm at the aquatic park and I look out and I see Alcatraz, I don't see this view. That's my thing, is like, I don't see this view. And by the way,
You
there's
need to
a
look
ton of,
there. You should look.
there's a
'cause
ton of,
you're looking right across the water at a prison. You know,
but you're giving up the bridge.
I don't see a bridge though.
Alcatraz,
You have
Education
manufactured that.
justice for all to see. That's another Alcatraz reference that's
Yeah.
in the verse.
So Justin, I posted a video that I cut where I make a very controversial, I present a very controversial idea about the bridge, but I just showed you the match to the shoreline and the painting, which actually shows the bridge. It's that line that goes straight across. So there's one reference, but the crease in the painting actually fits this image here on the right. So anyway, I posted that in the comments if you want to take a look at it. But you can't leave the bridge out. Stop leaving the bridge out. Stop making Byron into an idiot. Stop making him into a dunce, like a stupid guy. Hey, you've got the world's most iconic bridge, and now I'm going to show you some like dinky little park up in the city.
It's not dinky.
Yeah.
It's super historic, actually. It's got a lot of
Okay, so what you
I'm
just
the
said-
oldest
wait.
parks.
So if the Golden Gate Bridge is so iconic, why would he not use Golden Gate Park?
Right.
Probably
Or-
Golden Gate Park.
Why would he not use the Brooklyn Bridge, another iconic bridge?
He's using the Verrazano Bridge
Yeah,
in New York.
you can't just use icon. The purpose is he takes something there that's just not obvious.
How many parks are there? How many city parks are there in the marquee cities of the United States that mimic GGP? Central Park. There's a park in down Denver. There's nothing unique about GGP, and I can't hear the foghorns from there. But the bridge itself, show me a bridge, a more recognized bridge. So this is my whole point, guys. Stop making Byron
It's
into
not
an idiot.
there.
Stop
You want
making
it
him
to be
into.
there, but it's not there. I just don't
I'm
see
showing
it
it
there.
to you right here.
I never
It's
came
not-
across
That's
any.
a
If he
stretch.
shows
It's
you,
too much of a
if he
stretch.
makes the bridge, so Byron, this is Byron, okay? I'm going to put you into Byron's brain for a moment. I'm going to wind the clocks back, okay? If I show people
I hear you. I hear
too
you.
much,
Yeah,
if I
your
show them,
argument's clear.
if I
The
show them
evidence
too
is
much,
lacking.
if I show them too much of the Golden Gate Bridge, people are going to dig the shit out of that spot, and eventually they will find it because they know where would Byron likely put it, next to the world's most iconic bridge. So instead, what he has JJP do is he's showing you the bridge, but it's these posts on the bridge. And by the way, look into the history. This little arch that goes into the bridge, that's not part of the engineering of the bridge. It was put there to save Fort Point, which is the fort that you can see just barely here. And by the way, it was considered at the time the most important stone masonry building like on planet Earth. So there was a specific effort made to save the fort when the bridge was being put together. This is a very Byron-esque story, is it not?
Right.
That this
It is.
fort
And
was saved through this. Now people like go through here their entire lifetime and they just look at that arch and they say, oh, well, that was needed to make. No, it wasn't. This is something he would want you to know historically. Okay, so it's more than just 4 posts on the bridge. Look into
But
Fort
if-
Point.
If Byron wanted you to know about this bridge, why is it not referenced in the book?
yeah.
Maybe you just
Why is
haven't
it not
found
written
the
in
reference.
verse?
No.
You know, like I said, it's
look.
so iconic with its color. He could have used the color in the rose or something.
Because
And
you
it's just
Where everybody
Not
was. They
there.
were at Golden Gate, or they were in this park on the south side of the Golden
well,
Gate Bridge.
you need to watch the Shoreline Solve
They
videos.
paved road over where it was buried.
But here's a safe idea on San Francisco and New York, as it turns out. I must
Okay.
include as a centerpiece the most iconic, world-renowned areas of these cities. He's not going to leave those out. That's my whole point. When we started the video. He's not going to leave the Golden Gate Bridge out.
Well, because
See,
if
but you're following your rules when you're not following the puzzle.
you can't use major stuff that everybody's familiar with. That's part of the, it's not making Byron look dumb. He intentionally did not use stuff like this. The second most iconic bridge, you're right. Golden Gate Bridge is the most iconic bridge in America. The second most iconic
in the world.
Is
in
the
the world. So do me a favor, okay? Humor me for a moment. I want you to look at all the different cities that haven't been solved. And I want you to ask yourself, what is the most iconic, interesting parts to these cities? And I will guarantee you that he is going to include those in the solve.
No.
Why would he give you a low light tour, the second or third tier? No one goes to San Francisco and says, I can't wait to go to Aquatic Park. Can you please take me over to Aquatic Park? But I guarantee you this, if you go to San Francisco, you are going to go to the Golden Gate Bridge. Why would he leave that out?
It's not like Golden Gate Bridge
You are
Park.
going to, if you go and dig a hole at GGP or Quad, you're going to go down to Fisherman's Wharf. You're going to go to the bridge. Guys, you got to get
Fisherman's
on the
Wharf
site.
is where Aquatic Park is.
Well, that's the start.
I think that's the end. But
Well, you've got to include the bridge. Okay, so
here's
anyway,
another
I'm
little
throwing that
fair
out
folk
there.
tip. Here's another little fair folk tip that they left us in the book. Take it or leave it. If you liked the back of the book, you think it's useful. Corporate giants. I'll read this paragraph. Evidence of their presence can be found throughout the country. However, Houston and Dallas are possibly boot prints where they have stomped. Each is but a man's step for giant kind. Apollo 11 references right there in the book.
Exactly.
Check it out.
So
The
I
next page.
I promise you those
Boats
moons.
in the water, just like in Aquatic Park.
There's
Corporate
boats
giants.
everywhere in the
Read it.
bay.
Well,
Yeah,
look at Aquatic Park, where all the
Put it this way.
historic boats are harbored.
If NASA had something to do with Aquatic Park, you would definitely search there. But eventually, you'd come across
No
stories.
one associates
stuff
the
is
Apollo
actually
11
there.
mission to San Francisco. I
That's
know
because you're
you
not
can.
from San Francisco. If you look up
No,
the
no
Apollo
one
11
does.
mission, that's where they went and got the astronauts from. That's where Nixon went and did a tour as they were picking up the astronauts.
I
He
don't
went
mind you
down to
including.
Fisherman's Wharf.
I don't mind you including that, but you have to include the bridge as a central piece.
There's no bridge there, and there's nothing there that says bridge. There's 11 moons, and there's an Apollo 11 moon mission.
So you don't think this is a good fit? Look at number
I
one.
don't. I wish I did.
You
I would agree
don't.
with
You
if I
don't
did.
think number one. I just focus on number one for a second. You don't think that's a good visual fit? I shot this photo myself from the exact proposed dig location. You don't think number one is a good fit?
I think you could line it up
Spicy.
with lots of different rocks and things.
Well, so
like-
where are you lining those up? I mean, this is
I
an
just see it as the
incredibly good
rock.
fit.
When I look at that, I see the rock, which is the nickname for Alcatraz.
It's not going to have one meaning. It's not going to. JJP never put something together and makes one meaning around
The
it.
Ames Research Center is located in Silicon Valley. It's 35 miles south of San Francisco. So that clue to NASA is California because it only involves 3 states. But that shows
look at
how
Nixon-
far Byron's putting
All right.
clues. So you're
Guys.
going to Ames Research Center. What does this place do? Eventually, you figured out it's not in the Silicon Valley because you find other clues in the book that will take you to LA, Los Angeles, San Diego.
But that's
There's
why he
lots
puts
of-
a picture of Nixon in the Alibi Elf. So in the Alibi Elf, which is referencing Birdman of Alcatraz, there's a picture of Nixon on the back page here.
And
So
what? Okay, wait. What is important about
This is
Richard
Nixon.
Nixon? How many presidents are from California? There's only 2 of them. And who
Where
was
is he in the verse or the painting?
his imagery
What do you
shown in the
mean?
book?
Where is he in the
This is
verse or the
imagery shown in the
painting?
book. This is imagery
No,
shown in the book.
I-
Once you know you're in California, the event that he's trying to get you to reference seems to be the Apollo 11
And
moon mission event.
there's a silhouette of Ronald Reagan in the painting of San Francisco.
Where is he in the painting or the verse?
Who, Nixon?
Mm-hmm.
Nixon doesn't
Nixon
have
isn't in the painting, but he's in the Fair Folk. So
Show
he's
me
in
in
the
the
Alibi
verse.
Elf. Show me where the Golden Gate Bridge is in the
What story is
verse.
that, Justin?
Say
with
what?
Nick? It was one of the
What'd you say there?
What story is that with Nixon, where he's got his? It's the
It's the Alibi Elf. So the back page of the Alibi Elf, he is like one of the lawyers here, like checking his watch. Let's see. And you see him there. Very like dead ringer for like Nixon as a
oh yeah.
fairy.
I see it. I've never seen that before. Yeah, you're right. The nose.
And if you look at Nixon's time in San Francisco for the Apollo 11 mission,
First,
he rides the
first president of the United
trolley
States
down
in
to
California.
Aquatic Park. He ends up right there at Aquatic Park.
So I'm going to give you the explanation, which you guys weren't able to answer for me, which is troubling, of what these scales are. Okay. So
Bags on a baseball field. Go to
would we
base-
agree the focus group are the Chinese for this one?
Yes. Because they invented
Okay.
the first sport.
So there was this little thing that happened in San Francisco in 1906. It's
Yeah.
probably the most famous earthquake that's ever
Yeah, no, that's
happened.
Nixon. Yeah.
The mugwumps.
The most
Page-
famous
page 146.
earthquake and fires that burned the city to the ground. And if you look into the history of this particular situation, what you find is that as the fires burned, they huddled people into GGP and the Presidio because there was a massive amount of discrimination against these poor folks. They didn't huddle them into GGP. They huddled them into the Presidio, the far west side of the Presidio. And they built these camps. So I'm telling you, because I'm in the Presidio, of course I like this answer. But I have an answer for all these spires, or all these scales on the dragon. Boy, they look very eerily like these tent cities and these temporary housing that was built for this incredibly historic event in San Francisco that affected the Chinese. So if I'm looking at the 1906 fire and earthquake, and I say, well, how did that affect the Chinese? It put them into the Presidio, into these camps that look just like what you see in the dragon.
And yeah, that's
So
they also used the
I
internment camps for the Japanese during World War II. You know, that'd
where
be
I'm at in the Presidio on the far west side is to
Douglas,
correspond to this incredibly historic event. They weren't huddled into the aquatic park. They weren't huddled into GGP, or Chinatown. In fact, they tried to take Chinatown. They tried to take all that land. And so look into it. But anyway, so I think when you're in a high probability spot, these things fall into place. You don't have to stretch. You don't have to reach off the board. These things are there. So I challenge anyone to give me a better explanation for what these scales are.
But you're
And it's
picking
not-
apart little tiny details, and then you're building your
Little
argument
tiny
around
details.
small
This
details.
is like half the painting is this dragon.
Yeah, but
that
the
tells
dragon
you-
is a dragon. It has
That-
scales. You're trying to
that
make the
tells you-
argument about the scales instead of about the dragon. I think the trolley system and how it winds through the city is more representative of the dragon. Do you know what the
No,
name of the
I just say, like,
transportation
I happen
system
to have
is?
an incredibly tight explanation for these scales. Where I'm at, I just so happen to. It's not like I'm not basing my solve at Battery Lancaster on that, but it just so happens there's a great explanation for this. Okay, so I talk about when you talk about
the Golden Gate.
when you talk about probabilities versus possibilities, the highest probability solve will include more of the painting, more of the verse.
I completely disagree. The highest probability solve uses the book, painting, and poem. That's there's no reason to have all these pages of writing in the photographs.
Well,
and the dolls of
I don't
Joel.
disagree with you. But
Every single thing has to be used.
what
This
leads?
is why we're almost 43 years into this. I mean, if it's the Golden Gate, Mark, I'd say just look to the book. I mean, you can look in the back. If the Golden Gate's in there, Byron hides it in the name of a fairy.
I'm listening, by the way. I got to get a refill.
And,
Okay.
And basically, any of these things. Damon Runyon, that's an actual real person. Alibi Elf,
Right.
it's a connection to the movie, like Justin said. Foul
Now,
these are events or people. The Filthy Habit, which is the whole story's about smoking. Ben Asen just talked about how Byron didn't smoke and he thought it was nasty. So instead of calling it a filthy habit, he called it the Filthy Hobbit. It's just wordplay. Jack-o'-lantern, what does that mean? What's a job goblin? You're looking for the descendant of all these fairies, and Byron gives you a good idea where they came from. This is the fairies. The book, I get that all the time from people. I don't see in the book where it says you got to use 2 fairies. I said he tells you the fairies do everything in 2s, and if you're not using 2 fairies at least, your theory is completely wrong. And I'm really going to push that in 2025. Justin understands how a lot of these, when I made him a group expert, when he figured out the breakdown of the story, which is something that I look at people that go, hey, I found this. There's a lot of stuff I found that I've told nobody. The second he started posting that about the connection to the oil companies in Houston, oil wells, everything, oil, Middle East. That's why Houston's got the DGen and all the Middle Eastern imagery, because if you come to America, where's our oil center? Texas. If you go abroad, where's it at? It's in the Middle East. It's Persian, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia.
And Houston has a long history with Middle Easterners.
Follow the
That's right.
clues of oil. And you go, and they'll go, oh, the first oil well was in Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's part of it. Take your ass up there and find out that research too. But where are all the oil companies? They're all in Houston, Texas. And the fires you were just talking about, that's the Backyard Barber Creek, talking about conflagration events. It's a fire out of control. That gives you an idea of why fire departments are what they are today. Because every major city and culture around the world has had a fire event, including Rome, that got completely out of control. And we know the water tower was used. What's the water tower in Chicago that's in the painting? It's a memorial to Chicago's Great Fire. That's how it all connects. Lighthouses. If we go to Milwaukee and they talk about the Wonderstone. Wonderstone's used in fireplaces, right? What were the first lighthouses? They were just like in Lord of the Rings. They lit fire up there. So of course you can't use regular stone that's going to be degraded by high heat. So they had to use Waterstone. The earliest basically lighthouse was also in the Middle East, Egypt area. They didn't have lamp oil and stuff, so they put wood up there and they burned it. So
Hey, Eric,
Waterstone fireplace.
did you
that's the connection.
did you study history in college or anything? I mean,
No, I was big on history in high school, but not
because I would argue there's no person on planet Earth that knows the stories better than you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I take them from the beginning to the end.
If there is, I don't know who is better than you at the stories. My only thing is this: is when we look at, and I'm very interested in methodology, right? In having a very sound methodology that allows us to arrive at the right answers. Okay, because I'm really interested to find the right place within 7x7. Okay, but so when I think about the verse, the paintings, and the stories, if I have to rank order those, I think the verse and the painting have to come before the stories. I've talked about this before. Not that they aren't important. As you well know, I think you have to have the stories for New York City. Okay? Which is different than other puzzles. But so I not to discredit you, but rather applaud you for understanding these stories. It's just if I put the stories before the verses and the painting, I think, and I'm not saying you're doing that, but I think that could be a problem in methodology to solve these. Just like your Apollo 11. Do I think Apollo 11 is referenced in the moon? Yeah, I think that's a great connection. And I think what you're talking about is a great connection. Okay. But it's not the story of San Francisco.
Why do you think why do you think you would include it in the painting, in the verse, and in the Fair Folk stories if it wasn't a crucial part of the puzzle? You know, it might not be something that jumps out to you as something that's in San Francisco, but it is very San Francisco.
Well,
You know,
I don't disagree with that. But what I would
that's
say,
where that's where the Hornet was docked at. So USS Hornet, which picked up the astronauts from the ocean, was docked there at Aquatic Park.
Sure. Here's my thing, Justin.
Because they landed in the Pacific, right?
Right.
And
when I'm rank ordering things in my brain and just like trying to put these together, I'm not going to put the Apollo 11 mission above the Golden Gate Bridge for the reasons I've cited.
Byron,
the reason I cited is no one.
History.
If I go ask 100 people, what do you think of when you think of San Francisco? Nobody
maybe that's
is going to mention the Apollo.
Maybe that's why no one's found this test. No one's found the test because he's not giving you the obvious.
You have to include the bridge. You have to include the bridge as a central piece. Not just like, I see it from
that you made
2 miles away.
It's not a real rule. It's just something that you have imposed.
You have to have good. You have to lay filters over this based on Byron's brain.
You don't know Byron. Like, you can't say that you know him.
I will tell you, I arrived next to the bridge without that filter, by the way. Okay, but in retrospect, when we look at it, I'm like, well, freaking A, of course he's going to include the bridge. He's not that mean. Dumb.
Oh, here we go.
He's not that mean.
You're playing on the it's easy thing. It's not.
Yeah.
Byron was.
Hey, if you go and dig a hole at GGP, fly out to San Francisco, dig a hole there, and when you're done with that, you're going to go to the bridge and you're going to go to Fisherman's Wharf. You're not going to go to the old Candlestick Park.
And see, I'll tell you something right here. Like Aces High, how you have airplane fighter pilot aces. John Poundcar has talked about a lot of stuff in the book is meant to deceive you. And when you think ace, anybody you say, if I say, what's an ace? Most people are going to go, oh, that's like a fighter pilot that shot down at least 3 people. And that's exactly what Byron wants them to do, even though it's completely wrong.
This just so happens to be on the way from Fisherman's Wharf and Ghirardelli to the bridge.
Yeah. But he's saying ace is high. And see, in baseball, a top pitcher is called an ace, and he's on the mound, which is high. Baseball's in the book. Airplanes, fighter pilots in San Francisco is not in the book. There's no imagery and there's no book references. I know that right off the top of my head. But when I look at this is Aces High, I see that. That's the verse, but it's
this
not.
Is one of the strongest clue entire book. And I've looked at 5 puzzles. This one is so tight. It was was it Christine? Somebody. She showed this, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to give you credit." And I can't remember her name, and I looked back to see. But my good, this film came out in 1976. It's such a tight fit, and it gets you from Ghirardelli near the aquatic park. It moves you along the shoreline, which he's clearly doing. He's starting you at Pier 43.5, moving you to Ghirardelli. So then I have a direction established. So why not keep on that path to the world's most iconic bridge? This is what I'm talking about as far as handicapping answers. We've got to step back for a second and think about how the man, what he would want us to see. Will he stop us
is
at
it a movie
aquatic?
poster? The
Yeah,
Coast?
this was a movie. This was about, what's that?
Is it supposed to be the coast too on the other side? Are you saying?
Well, this is
What do you
Chrissy
say?
Field. It's Chrissy Field is now just a field. It's just a park, but it used to be a military airfield.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I can
we know-
tell you what that movie- I can tell you what that movie's got to do. All the actors in it are British, and that's the second ferry you need in San Francisco. So far, just
Okay,
research
well, there
that
you go.
movie. Christopher Plummer, Malcolm McDowell,
Yeah,
Peter
it's all, yeah. It's about-
Simon Ward, they're all Brits.
so, Douglas, what's your question?
So what is the Aces High? What does that got to do with that coast you're showing me there?
Well, Chrissy Field was a military airfield for decades.
Okay.
It's named after one of the original military pilots, which is an ace.
Mhm.
This is as
Yeah.
tight as it gets in terms of a answer to a clue.
Okay. Okay, I get you now.
So back in '83, it was still, I think it was decommissioned at this point, but it was operating as an airstrip up until like the late '70s when Byron, very near when he would have been there. But prior to that, for decades, it was strictly a military airfield. So we know Byron likes military people. He likes history and cool, quirky things. This is as tight as it gets, folks.
But see, when Aces High turns the trench warfare of Journey's End into the aerial battles fought in 1917 by the Royal Flying Corps, or the RFC, above the Western Front of Europe. So the movie also references the war and the British fighting that war.
Okay, and by the way,
If Aces High had anything to do with San Francisco, it's telling you to reference the British ferry. Just like American baseball comes from British rounders. Our version of baseball is we got that from the British game called rounders, and also there was a Polish game that was very similar. That those are all mentioned in the book in one of the stories that also drops hints about baseball. But it actually lists those 3 This is what you need. Ferries do everything in twos or pairs. You need at least 2 of them. You need to
So
aim
there's a-
Byron hid as you need to figure out, is it Taiwanese? Is it Japanese? Is it Chinese? It's Chinese because of sports. They created Kuju, the first sport.
So, Eric, you tapping into your knowledge, right, and knowing this ferry connection
Mhm.
to the Brits. Oh, that lends legitimacy, I think, to this. That's not where I hang my hat. But because of your in-depth knowledge, better than anyone on planet Earth, I think you should be able to look at something like this and make an assessment. Does this now add a cement, to this idea? I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. San Francisco, if I'm right, will never be found. Will never be unearthed because there's been so much work at the most high probability place. If you like the idea of the shoreline solve, if you don't, and you want to be up in GGP or somewhere else, that's fine.
Yeah.
But fear not if you like the idea.
Descent with a
What's
little
that?
Scottish Irish. Mark Twain is of English descent. His relatives are from England, so he's British. See, there's another Brit. Baseball comes
So
from
when
British. Mark Twain's British, and he's Irish Scot, and there's a little African in there too. So
When you think about Byron and how he put these together, I told you guys this before. The Fairmont theory is garbage as far as I'm concerned. So asking that. But when you think about how he did this,
the Fairmont. Here's how the Fairmont works. The Fairmont,
it doesn't.
first one ever built was in San Francisco. It's a clue to the city, and that's it. You gotta read
There
the
you
story about the Fairmont.
I agree with you.
The daughters had it built and it's called the Fairmont because that was their name, and that's the first in Ghirardelli chocolates. That's also where they come from. When you go,
So if you
what's the history of Ghirardelli chocolates? They opened the first location in San Francisco.
I want you to think about this for a second. 3.5. She's pointing to the 4 and between the 3 and the 4. So one of the first things I did is I put into Google San Francisco 43.5. Up came Pier 43.5. How many piers do you know? Freaking half.
Is that pier famous?
It's where the red and white fleet launched from to Alcatraz that do all the bay tours.
Yep.
It's enormously.
And where is pier? Where is the pier?
It's down in Fisherman's Wharf.
In San Francisco.
Yes. Okay. So
It's another clue to the city.
what I'm saying is,
What tells you to pair the painting, the poet with the verse, with the city, but you got to figure out the state first before you figure out the city. There's some stuff Byron left out. Some of the clues you come across, they're just
so when he's making
about the city.
these puzzles, I told you this. He's figuring out what cool place can he put these boxes.
He works backwards, and
He's going to
looks
work
up
backwards from that.
and he comes up with every damn thing he could possibly hide. This is the hardest treasure hunt book ever created.
But once he
If
has
this were
all that,
100,000 copies, we would still be in the same boat.
once he has the spot and the verse, he don't need the painting. The painting is just additive, right?
Sure.
Because that's going to be done after the fact anyway. Now Eric is going to take and try to craft this story around the journey and the ultimate location, I think. Okay.
Yes.
So
You're going to decipher clues to figure out what location he's talking
So
about.
methodology wise, this is just me. I'm focused on the painting and the verse. Now, what throws my whole thing off is New York. You must have the fair folk stories there. You have to, or else you can be in 1,000 different places in New York City. But if you use the fair folk that clearly relate to New York City, you can actually only be in one spot. And that's what I argue to people.
That's true. There's clues in the verse in New York of who you should be looking at. When he says gaze north at the Isle of Bee, that's the British Isles. You're looking for somebody from the British Isles. It's as simple as that. That's why it's Thomas Paine. But
Yeah.
he has a connection to other events. So
How are
if
you going to
look
work in this? How are you going to work in the statue?
at- What now?
Again, this I'm this is just my
You mean the Statue of Liberty?
this is my silly brain. Yes. You must make the Statue of Liberty a central piece. It would be the largest miss that's in history.
You got. It's like you got that monument in the book. That's that Brooklyn Artillery Company. That really did nothing in New York. They left Brooklyn. They went to Washington. All it does is it's a clue to Brooklyn. But if you drive up there and you find that monument, you read it, you go, "What is this monument doing way the hell up here? This is to a Revolutionary War company in Brooklyn." where we just were. Yeah, you're driving back. You got to keep this book Byron designed. It's really, you're not supposed to go out anywhere until you figured it all out. There's always been this two-sided of you ain't solved it until you dug up the box. That's baloney. You ain't
Baloney.
solved it until it tells you where to go try to dig this thing up at. Once you find the box, that's it. But the book tells you where to go. Doesn't tell you X marks the spot. There's other stuff in the book.
So I would just contrast.
They knew they were in the right spot. They were digging all over the place, couldn't find it. They had to contact Byron. He sent them a photo because there was stuff in the book that Rob and all them missed.
Yeah.
It's like,
But like-
what did Byron expect us to do? Dig 1,000 holes until we find it? No. Byron said, I'm surprised y'all didn't find it. But there was something else in the book. And Rob said they really didn't use the book. Even though they had a winter time, they had to wait till the spring before they went. So I think somebody was digging in the book. But
Part of the challenge, if these puzzles were all the same, if the methodology was the same, if the paintings were all the same, this would be, once you figured out the formula, it would be rather easy. It's not. I think
for
none
me.
of these
How
none of
he
these
did
work
it.
exactly. None of these work exactly the same. Okay.
Yep.
In my experience, now I could be wrong, and I'm just missing it.
Well,
Okay.
Logically, there's no reason to make 12 puzzles and make them all the same. That's what a lot of people are missing. Some you need more painting. Some you need more diverse. Majority of it you need the book.
Yeah.
It's multi-levels. It's you're doing all this research on one person. You find out, damn it. This in the end, this is all this is telling me is I need to be in Houston, Texas. And there's nothing really in the verse that has anything to do with this guy. Like Rusk Ali, that clue. Muhammad Ali's court appearance on Rush Street, because Houston's where he was supposed to appear to be sworn in for the draft, and he said no and got arrested. Ali moved to there after he became Muhammad Ali, and his sentence was, he was convicted. His sentence was commuted by the Supreme Court in 1971, and then he left. So other than that, did Ali have any fights there? That, if someone said, hey, Muhammad Ali, this got to be about his boxing career. No, it's about a court appearance he had because he changed his name, converted to Islam, and refused to join the armed forces. And
so
where did that happen? Houston, Texas.
Let's think about this for a second, right? If my theory is right in terms of how he built these puzzles, okay, the stories come at the end because he's got it all laid out and he can then figure out all these interconnections. I don't think the stories lead him to place the box somewhere. Okay, so if that's indeed the case, you do have to think about how these things were put together to help you understand where are the boxes likely to be. So that's all I'm asking you. So I do think, and I could be totally wrong on this, but a good filter to lay over this is you start with where would the box be? What are some of those historic, cool places he would want you to visit?
Yeah.
He's not going to start with the stories and say, I've got these two ferries that I want to integrate into San Francisco. Now let me then find a place to bury the box. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
When you think of,
I don't agree.
Therefore you have to get the verse right and the painting right, and then use the stories to back up and provide cement.
Everything pretty much in that verse is vague, but it's all going to have something in common. And it's to like Twain, Ace, Stonewall. That event's just San Francisco. Giant pole, giant step. That's just Byron playing wordplay. That's giant bat, giant bag. He just used different words. But the giant, anything you see in the book that has giant listed on it has to do with San Francisco. Period. because the New York puzzle doesn't have anything to do with baseball, and neither does any other puzzle. I know they're in Roanoke chasing. It's like, no, that's absolute nonsense. When people were just like, I have to go check every home plate. That is stupid. Why Byron would even do that? Use 2 home plates? It's a joke. People still do that. I've talked to that guy in Roanoke. You know, someone pulled up home plate and caused like $800 of damage. Yeah, it's ridiculous. The book is going to tell you, but it's so vague. Everything is so vague. You got to have.
All right, so I'm gonna throw this out there. All right, so I haven't worked on Montreal. What are the places, the historic cool places? If I go to Montreal and I type into Google, which you couldn't do back then, but what are the places that I would want to see in Montreal?
Well, the old Expo, 6-7 Expo site. Tourist attractions like Mount Royal. He used Mount Royal. He used the college right at the foot of it, McGill University. But once you get on Mount Royal, he uses something completely different.
Historic top 10 places that people would want to go. And I'll tell you, if you can narrow down, let's say, the top 3 places in Montreal that have historical significance, that are cool, that connect to some of the stories you're talking about, you've got yourself a winner, right? But some obscure place, some park that has nothing to do with the highlight of Montreal, I think personally is just a low probability answer, right? So you tell me, I don't know Montreal at all. What are the highlights of Montreal?
Let's just give your theory a little bit of airing out. What about the north end of Boston is amazing that you just have to go see a baseball field in the north end of Boston? What is there?
Well,
that is
all of the history of
amazing.
Boston happened in the downtown. So from where he starts Boston to where he ends it, you're within walking distance of all the cool stuff that happened in Boston. That's where all the history happened. Right there is concentrated. So my argument to you, Justin,
that's the same for Aquatic Park, though. Because all the history of San Francisco is concentrated in that area. You have the first landing of the people. Yeah, it is. You're
leaving the bridge out.
First people coming in. That's not the only thing about San Francisco, though.
It's the most important thing.
It's one thing.
Let's back up to Boston real quick. So Boston, North Boston, we know the immigration, and that if you look it up, you'll find the years that the Italians started to occupy North Boston. But if you take the other part of the verse and you do the Paul Revere and you go way back to that time, North Boston was British. There's your 2 fairies of the secret. You have the Italians in North Boston at one timeline put in there. Then you have Paul Revere, and the British are coming because that was a British colony. And that puts you right in the area. And then you just follow the little, if you come down the steps that Paul Revere used and jumped on the horse, those are the steps you got down there at your back facing the water, and you're right across from Langone. And then guess what? The Langones are another story. You know, but you got to figure that once you're there, feel at home, you can go right over there. But if you do that
in Boston, he's not 5 miles away from the downtown. He is in the downtown where all of the cool historic things happened.
Tower of Green Lights is Charlestown Prison.
He's not near any of the colleges.
They are burying the box. You have to learn Boston to know that.
The history of Boston is not the colleges. It's the Boston Tea Party. It's all of the history right in the middle of downtown. It's right where he has you.
Well, a lot of cities had tea parties. Charleston had one, but it's not as known as Boston. That's another thing.
Again, in Cleveland, there's nothing you have to see. Okay, I'm sorry, Cleveland. I grew up in Detroit. I'm a Michigan guy. We hate Ohio and everything that comes from Ohio. Okay.
Well, you know that was Palancar.
Okay, there's one thing about Ohio I like, JJP. Okay, but I'm just saying, like, Cleveland's not a journey puzzle. There's no places you have to see in Cleveland, so he makes it small. In San Francisco, it's the total opposite.
Yep.
So I'm just saying a filter you can lay over safely, I think, on these puzzles is if a city has something very particular to it, very cool and unique that someone like Byron would want you to know, that's a high probability place to be hanging out and looking for the box. So in Montreal,
Right.
somebody tell
you
me,
can see
I don't know
you can
Montreal at
see the
all.
Golden
Like,
Gate Bridge from Aquatic Park.
but why not
Like
be
you
next to
see
it?
it. Well, why are you saying you have to be? That's the problem I'm having with your theory. Is that like you're saying this is a rule that Byron must have done this.
Well, I'm
You
handicapping it,
don't
Justin.
know that.
No, I don't, but I'm handicapping it. I think that's a safe filter.
I
Is the
think that's
Golden
a
Gate Bridge.
that's a box that might keep you from looking into more.
But you're
probable-
leaving it out. The number one attraction in San Francisco.
It never has drawn me there. You know, I was never like, oh, this so reminds me of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Listen,
Oh, here's a
go-
line from the book.
do a
that
Google
says
search.
Golden Gates.
there's certain ways
Do-
everybody works the puzzle. Mark's not really using the book and the stories and looking for clues. That is what I do. I use the book.
Yeah,
nothing-
I know. You should use the puzzle.
I know that I can't find in here. You know,
I've read the book top to bottom. I've never seen him write about a Golden Gate,
Yeah,
which
we were
would be an
talking
easy little bit of wordplay to toss into a paragraph.
But I'm asking you to get in the man's brain and ask yourself, it's like, go type into Google, where should I go
That's
if I
what
go
I'm
to San
saying.
Francisco?
How are you
Every
getting into
single
his brain?
Every
Let me show
single
you-
search.
Mark's saying that the major iconic locations should be used.
Yes.
I
But
I-
you're not
This
getting
was
his brain.
19.
use
This
it
was
in
1980.
Read Byron's books. Read Byron's books, and then get into his brain. Don't just
Guys,
think
this-
that you
this was
know Byron without actually getting to
This
know
was
Byron.
1980.
And we got to look at Masquerade. He did it bigger and better. It took Masquerade 5 years to be solved. Even the two doctors that actually did it correctly, not the cheat that paid the girlfriend.
This also
Byron
goes for
made
New
it
York.
10 times worse. There's not, and when Byron says it's easy, you got to imagine you're Byron, and you know everything and all the research that you put in this book. It's like if you told someone, hey, what do you do? I do brain surgery. You want to try it? I have no idea what I'm doing. Oh, it's easy for me because he's had all the training and all the knowledge. That's what Byron means. And then someone the other day said, well, why don't you make the treasures better? You know what? Because you're getting knowledge. You are getting knowledge. That's the biggest treasure you're getting out of this. And if you find something, legitimately find something on your own. And this book eventually is going to get to the point where people are going to realize it's difficult. Byron knew a lot of people would throw this book in the garbage. He didn't care once they bought it. And this shit ain't easy. What's he talking about? Exactly. You bought the book, sucker. He's selling books. So he
Can you
made
guys
a
tell
book
me
that was meant for the long run. And that's what The Secret, The Treasure Hunt by Byron Price is. You better pack a damn lunch because you are going to be researching the crap out of stuff.
Yeah.
Still,
So
Byron loved space. Byron wrote science fiction novels about space
Yeah.
travel. So the idea that he is not going to include something about Apollo 11 is ridiculous if you actually knew Byron and read his books.
I'm not saying he's.
the book. You know,
I think those 11 moons are way like almost a certainty that he's referencing Apollo 11 because that is a part of the lore of San Francisco. But what I'm asking you to consider is, I'm not saying that's not part of it. If I ask 100 people about San Francisco, they're going to tell me the Golden Gate Bridge. He has got to
That doesn't
include
mean
that.
that he would do that. Like,
Just
you're
just
saying
like this.
just because it's a popular place means he has to have buried it there. That's
This
just
is
an
1980.
artificial construct that you're putting up around your
It's not.
solve. And
Not.
it's just something that you think that is your opinion. Like it doesn't mean.
So I
that
told
he
you, I
built a
got
puzzle
to the
up.
place where I'm at next to the bridge without this filter. It's in retrospect. Of course, he's going to make the bridge, the most iconic bridge in the world, a central piece to this. And by the way, the Chinese have a history in the Presidio. Isn't that convenient? Look, okay, we can debate that all night long. But I'm just wondering, Montreal, as you can tell, I'm very adamant about this, but in Montreal, I'm not, because I don't know jack shit. But when I look at this overhead, I'm going to say, like, this box is probably in this park up here. What is that, La Fontaine Park? Or this one right here, Parc Argonne. Like, these look like the most prominent parks, which probably have the most history. It's not going to be on one of these little islands. So it's probably like somewhere.
It's on Mount Royal.
It's on Mount Royal. Eric's right. It's on Mount Royal.
Okay,
What's the
where's
name of the
Mount
monument
Royal?
there that fits? You can like overlay it and it like lays on like perfectly.
Where's Mount Royal?
Jacques, I can't remember it. The name of the monument.
All right,
But,
we got a comment. We got a comment from Timeless Cyborg.
Where
that
is
said,
it?
Do you want to make a solid
Okay.
methodology to find what was in the head of Byron is a terrible way.
Okay.
Say what?
So I agree.
Say it
I
again?
agree with you. This looks like one of the central, like this is the big park in the whole city, right?
And there's white stones up there. You always got to pretend like you don't know jack squat about the city. You know, when you search white stones in Montreal, it takes you right there. Of course, different today. You know, Google today and internet research is just the same as you've read in a damn library. I mean, it's going to basically give you that. Other clues.
Are most people?
YMCA, that all put you. The YMCA is right across the street from the Leg Eater Lamp. As a matter of fact, hold on, Mark. Let me take this down real quick.
Are most people in Mount Royal? Is that where Mount?
They're all over the place. Hang
Yeah,
on,
they're all over the place.
move that real quick, Mark. I want to show everybody.
Yeah.
something.
Okay,
This,
so knowing nothing about Montreal, I'm going to tell you that park, it's the largest one. It's a high probability place. There's probably a lot of history there. It's
First Soto was right
huge.
outside that.
Grant Park,
Let me
by the
tell
way.
everybody real quick. I got the Linda Spalding was nice enough to send me this. As we're talking about the Montreal. She sent them out to a few people. It's got to finish putting this together, but this is the Lamp Eater statue.
Oh, nice.
Where the heck my camera is there? Sure, I got this thing.
Nice.
Yeah. She was nice.
I mean,
enough
that's
the other week she
that's
asked
incredible.
she asked me for my address and she sent me one. And there's,
Nice.
you know,
Well,
it doesn't really want to fit here. She made a video today, but don't worry about it. I'll fix it. I just think this is the coolest thing in the world. And
That's really awesome.
she showed them before, but she's so sweet and thoughtful that she actually sent this to me. I was just blown away. And then if you take this off and you turn on, it comes with a little tea light, and you put that inside there, and basically, once I get this thing together, you know, it's lit up. I can't wait.
Looking like alfalfa.
I'm going to build me another shelf back here, and it's going to sit right there. But I just want to give. She does Linda Spalding does the AP Rabbit Hole site for The Secret. If anybody watching wants to join that, and she's been in the community for a while, and she mostly focuses on San Francisco. So I just wanted to thank her for sending me that because I just think that's the coolest.
Yeah, Linda's awesome.
Whoever made this, man, it's 3D printed, but man, this thing it's sweet. I can't wait to get it. It's kind of black and green. I like the colors on it, but I mean, this stuff all comes apart, man.
That's really cool.
And it's got good designs on it too. You can actually make out the designs on it. I don't ever plan on going to Montreal, so
I mean, is Linda Spalding not the queen of The Secret? I mean,
she's been out there. She's had her page for a while. I don't I've been a member of her page for a long time. I don't know when she started, but you know, she's in the
Definitely.
community. She went to the meetup in Cleveland, and she got to meet Palancar finally. I saw she met Andy Abrams, Brian Zen. She took pictures of everybody, and she's got like a massive collection. I like watching. She does. She gets a lot of gifts, and people send her books.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I like that. So she's cool. I'm just, you know, she's like, hey, give me your address, and she sent me that, and I was like, didn't say what she was sending me, and I was like, man, I hope she's sending me a lamp eater leg. It didn't turn out that's what it was.
So what does one have to do to be on the what does one have to do to be on the Christmas gift list from Linda Spalding? I mean, I'm going to make a shot, make an effort to try to get on this list.
Because apparently what she said in her video was they come. I guess when they make these, they do fit together good. This part goes on here, but she said when she got them, she mixed all these up. So this ain't when these were printed. This one wasn't printed with this, is what she thinks. And she was apologizing. I said, I don't care. I didn't care if this thing came broken in 200 pieces. I would get the super glue out. I don't care. I think this thing is, whoever made this is cool as hell, man. This is absolutely cool. And I told her, I said, I'll drill it. I'm going to put a pin in there to make it fit because the lamp's really big. And I tried to glue it, but it won't seat down. It's kind of still wobbling. So she said, I'm probably not going to do it next year, but I don't even know how much these cost or who makes them. So I'm going to send her some secret related good stuff. And she gets books and stuff. She gets enough books from other people. I'm not going to send her books, but if she sees this, I'll tell her later. I'll give her a shout out. But stuff I'm going to send her is going to be a really big surprise, and it's going to be directly connected to stuff's in this book. So I wanted to do this at the beginning, but I completely forgot. We're almost at the 3-hour mark, but I just want to tell Linda, thank you. I think that thing is cool.
She lives up in Sacramento.
Yeah, I think she used to be in San Francisco and she just moved. Her and her wife got a house. Yeah, I think they had a house built, and yeah, she put stuff on there all the time.
So I invited her to come move some dirt with me, and it just didn't work out. I think she was going to Spain or something. So.
Wow.
Yeah, you got to be careful in San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco is one of them places. If you're looking in Golden Gate, don't even take your butt out there.
Yeah, they've got cameras and.
Yeah, they got some. You think you're sneaking around out there in the dark? They're gonna know. Already taught the one guy. He'll probably pop in here and go. Shh. He's like, thinks he's sneaking around out there in the dark. He said, next thing he knows, cops just showed up. He's like, the hell did they find me? He said he heard beeping going on. I said, yeah, you're tripping off cameras or something. I said,
All I know is I want Douglas to come with me because Batman never gets caught by the cops. So
yeah, now, a lot of drugs and stuff go on out there in San Francisco. I think that's the most reason why what's going on out there. It ain't really for secret people. Hey, there's Dave. I told you he'd pop up. He said they got me. Yeah, he said they came out of nowhere. And he's like, oh, they don't see where I'm at, and they went right to it. And it's like he's throwing. I won't say what he's throwing, but he's like getting rid of evidence. It's like, you're going to jail. But audible stuff. If you're out there at night, you're tripping off stuff. They got, technology cameras and crap. You ain't getting away from none of that stuff today. So let's see. Joe Chapman says we meet her out at Cherokee Park on the way to Cleveland. She wore our NOLA t-shirt, which brought tears to my eyes. Legit decent lady. Yep. I've never heard anybody say a bad thing about Linda. Linda, if you're watching, there's someone that's talking about how nice you are. Yeah, she gets a lot of stuff. She gets a lot of stuff. People send her books and people just send her stuff. It's like become a thing now. It's like, she's always getting Palancar book. She got a video today I watched. She got like a 1920s Tom Sawyer book. Someone just sent to her. But I got some stuff. I got some stuff connected to Florida, and I got some stuff connected to Chicago that's secret related. I'll set it, and I'll surprise her. I'm not
Hey,
gonna tell her.
I got a question about Houston. I haven't looked at Houston all that closely. People are in Herman Park.
Yep, that's the place.
So when I look at the
Yeah.
map and I have it pulled up, this Memorial Park are this is the biggest ones near the city and Herman.
Hmm.
And so like this is what I'm talking about. Like what are safe filters to put over these? And I'm throwing this out there. I know it's controversial, which is good because I want you to think. I want you to really, if you're putting this thing together back in 1980, you're not going to pick some little obscure park. Nobody knows it. And I can't research it. And today. So these little obscure off the beaten path places, there is no chance in hell that people in 1980 are going to be able to find them. So when I say look at the most obvious on the board answer, it's because I'm winding the clocks back to 1980. But when I look at Houston, for
And
example,
never find Boston because it's in a little tiny park that nobody's ever heard of.
but it's in the downtown where everything happened historically.
When you talk about history, so one big debate in America is the Plaza della Constituzione in St. Augustine versus Boston Commons. Boston Commons is not in the book. Now, that's the first park built in America after it was founded, and a lot of historians think that's the oldest park in America, which is not. I don't know where they're based that of, but the Plaza was here first, built by the Spanish. And when America became America, that park was already there. So
Okay.
when it comes to the oldest park, which he uses a lot of oldest stuff for a lot of the first stuff, he didn't use Boston Commons in Boston.
Eric, can you show that map that I have?
Yeah.
All right. So my choice is in Boston, right? Letterman Park, Boston Common, like that's where I would think it would be, but clearly it wasn't. This little guy here, I don't know what he is. What is this? Norman Leventhal Park. There's this guy up here. There's Langone. So
Well, some of them parks might have not been there either.
yeah, so I think this is a safe filter. If I'm in Boston, I want to be near, all this.
Yeah.
Where it happens. So this is actually a little ways away from Boston. I'm not that far, but like if I'm, up in this marketplace, which I think was very historic, as well as on the shoreline, on where the Boston Tea Party and everything else happened, I'm like probably up in here somewhere. So Christopher Columbus Park or Langone.
Yep.
This is what I'm saying, guys, is you have to think about it. You've got to play the odds. It's not going to be, I promise you, it's not going to be in this little thing. Whatever this Cardinal Cushing Memorial Park. It's going to be
You
there.
just don't know. You just have to solve the puzzle as it's presented to you.
Yes,
You're
sir.
doing yourselves
However,
any favors
One of the
by saying
However-
it has to be there, even if you've never looked at the puzzle. Well, it can't be there because it has to be here.
well,
Like,
okay.
that's just not
One-
how you're going to solve the puzzle.
Boston is one where the verse is referencing the painting when it says all the letters are there to see that you can't.
It's not going to be down in this little one. It's not going to be down in here.
You don't know, though. You have to solve it as it's presented
Yeah,
to
Justin,
you. The
all
clues
of
that
the
you're given.
action,
I would never use
all
that
of
too.
the action in Boston that Byron would be interested in, all the history, didn't happen down here. It happened
You don't know
up in
what
here.
story he's trying to tell you. He might be trying to tell you a story that he chooses to tell you that might not have to do with anything. Maybe it's something completely random, but he wants you to know it. So he led you down this path and you end up in this place and you're like,
Two thumbs
this is what he
down.
wanted me to know.
Two thumbs down.
You gotta follow the story that's presented to you, the clues that are presented to you.
Boston is in the book.
It's going to
Go
be
painting
a
versus
highlight tour. It's going to be important, close to important
I
historic
agree with
things
you
in
about a
Boston.
highlight tour. I agree with you
No,
that it's going to have important
out
things.
at the top
It
right.
doesn't
That's in
have
the
to be
painting,
this or that.
but that's about all you're getting. The north bias. You got to figure out how the hell you figure out it's Boston first, which is 12th hour lit by 18th day, 12th hour lit by lamplight. Maybe you can use that to come up with Paul Revere, or do you use the painting?
I mean, the amount of times he mentions the Puritans,
out
you'd think it was buried at Plymouth Rock. I know that goes against my argument that you have to use the back of the book and all the in-between words, but they definitely mention the Pilgrims and Plymouth Rock like 15 times in the book.
Mhm.
So he like throws that one out there pretty
Yeah.
obviously.
You gotta have the book. You gotta have the book to solve Boston. See, and here's another thing we're talking about at Boston. The guy that found, because we're just going to stop playing. The guy that found the cask in Boston, he took somebody else's stuff and went to that spot. And we're going to have a guy on with Douglas later that the other guy that should have been called first, but Krupat told two stories because basically he didn't do his own work to get there, and that's why he told Josh Gates and Boston news station two totally different stories. And then when people question about it, that's why he goes to everybody and still to this day doesn't talk to anybody.
That's right.
If you take somebody else's stuff and some guy, I don't know if it was Reddit Quest for Treasure, he told everybody that was at Langone Park. Nobody knows who this guy is, what his solve was, but this is people riding other people's coattails. That's what Boston was. And nothing personally against Jason Krupat, but that's the way I see it. If you take somebody else, if you're working with somebody and they basically do most of the work and you run and dig up the box and claim it's yours and give them no credit, if Krupat would have said, listen, I got here because this guy on Reddit, nobody knows who he is, it would have been different. I'd throw my solves out there. You want to go dig up Houston or New York's gone? I didn't tell Charleston. San Francisco, I've given a low A lot of spot. You go dig it up, just say, hey, Eric Thomas.
So in Chicago, Grant Park makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, you go by Navy Pier, he takes you through the north end of the park.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see the Navy Pier, which is very historic. And it's the biggest park in Chicago. So, this makes sense. That's all I'm saying,
that's
folks.
A huge park area. But when you reference L, he's hiding what Lincoln is, and when you use the verse of Chicago, he's abbreviated a lot of the stuff. He's just using the first letter of whatever you're supposed to see. But from their story, one of their friends said that's the water tower downtown, and that's where they went first, and then they just followed the path. Chicago was solved exactly like it was supposed to be. A bunch of locals that recognized the new local history. I don't know what the hell that is. Oh, that's in Chicago. What? I've never been in Chicago. How the hell am I supposed to know? Oh, that's the water tower. What the hell is that? Rob and his friends, they knew. They probably passed there a bazillion times before, they were teenagers. They were 18 or so. Part of these puzzles are designed for people that are local and know the history.
Well,
but they missed a big part of Chicago. Like, Chicago is about the Democratic Convention in 1968. That's why they put it in the Chicago World's Fair. That is the history that Byron is trying to teach us about. What happened in Chicago in 68? If you follow what happened in 68, it leads you right to Grant Park. It's just like the Apollo 11 story. It's a giant part of the city's history that has kind of been forgotten about. But if you talk to anybody from that era and talk about 68, they're going to tell you Grant Park is where you're going to be looking. So historical clues are huge.
Clues to the Civil War that would have helped you in the I see L. You could have walked the path, or the book path was for someone that knew nothing about history of Chicago and probably wasn't for Chicago. But,
right, but there is one giant clue that is what happened in 68. The riots that happened in 68. That's why they have the battlements. Why it looks like these castle walls.
Monsters, the fire events.
Well, yeah,
you got a water
68,
tower.
man,
You
68.
got a water tower in the Houston and Chicago painting. You just have an old water tower, and you have the water tower in Chicago basically is a structure over a well. If you go down to Houston, because of the dry desert climate and the lack of water in that area at the time, because they have a bayou, they had to build water towers. Because when you're building a city like that, it got to the point where the bayou wasn't providing enough water. So, Texas was well known for water towers. Some
Yeah.
areas in Florida are too, because we got, you either got the aquifer or you don't around here.
The guys in Chicago, I don't recall them mentioning anything about the Democratic Convention.
Yeah, because they didn't solve it.
Yeah,
They had to get pictures from Byron to even find it.
Yeah.
But in the Chicago World Series, they mention it verbatim. There's no reason why they would add that line unless it was important. Unless it was really important.
The Chicago World Ferry, take the Y off ferry, the Chicago.
I mean, they ended up with a box.
Chicago's in there.
That's because they got pictures from the person who buried the box showing where to dig.
Yeah,
well, they must have been pretty close.
Found,
the painting's got the
obviously not, because they couldn't bring it out of the ground on their own, and they almost gave up.
I mean, how close were they?
They weren't close enough to bring it out of the ground on their own.
I mean, if they were too far away, Byron would have told them, "Hey, you got to keep looking. You're not close enough." He clearly felt they were close enough to warrant him helping them.
Oh yeah.
Maybe they were close enough, but Byron probably wanted to get those books selling. So how do you get the books to sell? You have to have a casket found in a major city. It makes the news. You sell books.
Yeah.
So it definitely was, to benefit him.
They were kind of close. They were kind of close.
Easiest three were
found. They were kind of close. But I think that so much of that puzzle is still not understood. And a lot of it has to do with the clues in the back of the book and how we're going to help illuminate the verses in the puzzle that people don't understand, the imagery in the puzzle people don't have any answers for, like
if you stand there at that fence in Chicago and the verse says between fence and fixture, if you look at that fence post and you look at the light fixture that's behind you, which is what a fixture is, that's the 5 o'clock line. You're 6 looking at it. From that fence, it goes off to that fixture that's out by the street on the corner of the sidewalk, not the one that's on the wall. That's where you were supposed to stand there, and the fence is 3 and 9. Over the fence in the train yard's 12. You're 6, and Rob even said, I did a diagram like, is this about where the cask was? He said, yeah, but it tells you that line between the fence and the fixture, which would have been, if you're standing in front of the fence that you see in the painting, the fixture's to your right, back behind you, between fence and fixture. It's a long line too, but that's when you get there. Byron intended to probe that line, pop a string to whatever. So you go between this post and that fixture, but you had to know.
I mean, when you
play with
you really
May, and it put it right there.
In Byron's mind, if somebody's close, he's going to walk him into the box, and then it's solved, right? And what we're dealing with is today is he's no longer here. So
yeah, I don't think Byron wanted to give away why the number applies, why the paintings are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because Chicago was 5, and that Chicago's how I came up with the clock over the compass. So you're not using north in Chicago, you're using the imagery of the fence, which basically, when you're standing there looking at the fence, beyond the fence is west. So the rails of the fence going down are 3 and 9. Then you have 4, 5, you're 6, 7, 8. The other fence is 9. Beyond that doesn't matter because it's over and drop off in the train yard. But basically, staying there, if you're 90 degrees to that fence like this, 5 o'clock is right there, and standing there right to your right. And in that photo, there's a tree there now. And Rob said where that tree is about where we found the box. And it's not at 6 and it's not at 4. It's right in that 5 o'clock area. But Byron's giving you this line to probe on. He ain't telling you it's right there. It's right. It's 5 feet up though. He's giving you a line to probe down. But fence is fence and fixture is a light fixture. You can look up
Yeah.
what's a fixture in the park. It's either an electrical fixture or it's a light fixture. But right behind you, there's a whole bunch of, they're staggered back and forth. But obviously, it's not on the sidewalk, so you would basically just run a line from there and go, okay, so not on the sidewalk, so in this grass area between here and here.
Yeah.
And there was no tree there at the time, so it's these are, even when you figure it out it's the Civil War and all the other clues and the grant, you figure out it's Grant, you get in the back and you see the fence, you go, hey, there's still more to do. That's why they couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And in that clock compass, either you're using the perspective, your point of view is your 6 o'clock and you're looking down on the clock in front of you, or you use it on north when there's no fence, there's no Greek garden wall, there's no home plate. It works on all three found ones. Behind home plate's 8 o'clock with north in Boston. Standing behind the Greek Gardens wall, it was found in the rectangular plot on the right, which is 3 o'clock. Because you're 6, the left side's 9, the other side's 3. That's where they found it. That one's 3 o'clock. In Boston, you're looking at the fence. It was found just down to his right at 5 o'clock. All three match. That's why the
Yeah,
the
I mean,
clock-
people like to say Boston was under home plate, but I don't think that's verified.
There's
right?
no
I don't think it was there
home
either.
plate, there's a structure with a pipe. You can't dig up home plate.
No,
It was
there's not
back
that.
there. It was between the back tip of home plate, drawing the line between the catcher and umpire's legs going back to the fence. It was somewhere in there. I'm assuming it's in the box where they stood because it was all disturbed. Gotta do
So
a lot
these
of-
people digging up this ball field in Roanoke Island, they're just like,
yeah,
You're wasting your time.
you can't.
Yeah, wasting your time.
It's like this: a baseball field. It's actually they have to measure it out precisely. So when they measure it out from home plate to first base. They dig a hole and they put an actual pipe in the ground at ground level.
yeah.
Yeah.
And when you bring the base, it's got a big pin on it, and they stick it down there. That's so the bases don't move because it's the dimensions of the play field. So if you can pull up home plate and first base, but right underneath it's a big ass pipe in the ground that's got a plate on the bottom of it.
So again, I'm Byron, right? And
Mhm.
I've done Boston in a ball field.
Mhm.
This guy was so dynamic.
You're not
He
going to do it
was
again.
so
Yeah, I'll be right back.
I just don't think so, because what you risk
No.
is this thing is a baseball puzzle.
Yeah, right. You're right.
So
I agree.
I know people are kind of focused on that. It's easy to hang on to that. But that, to me, this is what I'm talking about, getting the guy's head. Is he going to make it? Well, first of all, I don't think it's autobiographical. It certainly has elements, of course, that he's interested in, like military people, ships,
Yeah.
Teddy Roosevelt, these things that show up over and over again, right? But, baseball, the risk that he has is all of a sudden now in every single city, people are just digging up these ball fields. And I just don't think the man would do that. He was too dynamic. Now, again, I could be wrong, Justin.
People
I could be
grab-
wrong.
That's why I think
Right?
that you have to be very open-minded with all the puzzles.
Well,
You
yes,
shouldn't
you
just
do.
say, "Oh, he would have done this because, of course, he's going to include this," or "Of course, this landmark is so important." I think that you have to be just like, "All right, I'm going to look at the evidence, and all right, this picture says this, and this verse says that, and go about it that way."
No,
But,
totally.
I really have found a lot of information from Byron's books, and I found this picture really interesting in the Webster's Dictionary. Inside the book, they include this picture of a ball field with a weird-looking key. It almost looks like a key, and that's not typically how a ball field looks. And then the X on the half stop there, and that's like the name of the page is Half Stop. This is like a funny book that they made with all these kind of play on word things, and it says Half Stop. Noun, a baseball position for the 10th person on the playing field. 2, in early Sandlot baseball, the position between first and second base. So not really funny.
Do you think that's where the box was in Boston?
It could have been. I don't know. Like I think it's a really interesting picture that he included in this book that he made shortly after The Secret. I think he hit a lot of clues in his works, especially the later works.
Home plate
Artists,
in the Boston painting, home plate is oriented. If you look at the painting and you go north, south, east, west, home plate on her sleeve is just like I drew right there. I don't know if you can really see it. That marker sucks. But that's the way it is in the painting, and that's north. So when you draw a clock over it, that tip back point is 8 o'clock. And the only disturbed ground out there, because everything else is nice and smooth, like everybody was going, it's out in front of home plate. It's like, no, they have to inspect them fields before games. And they'd go, what the hell? Somebody dug here. You'd be able to tell. So they only dig where they go and they rake out the batter's boxes where the umpire stands. That's always tore up. And when the game's over, they really don't touch it. So when they come in and go, hey, we got a game Tuesday, they'll go out there. The field guys will. That's the only place he could have buried it where nobody would have noticed, because it's already tore up all the time anyway. And part of it's safety stuff like that. Man, we've been on here 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, I know, right?
3 hours and 15 minutes. So we're going to, you guys want to keep going, or you want to? My wife's over there staring at us. You want to be on the podcast, sweetie?
Fold up the tent.
Yeah, we'll reconvene after the holidays.
Just real quickly, do you guys think any more boxes will ever be unearthed?
Maybe 1 or 2.
I hope so. I don't know. My luck's been pretty bad, but hoping so.
Puzzles you can get without risk of being arrested. God, every place has got something bad. Montreal, where I think it is up by the Whitestone, that's the closest south to the cross, which I think is the standing member of a forest is a reference to the cross. At night you can't get up in there, and at day you can't dig. New York's gone. Milwaukee, I don't know where that's at. Houston you can get, but you got to be careful if you're out there at night, because somebody told me it's not too safe, and there's a lot of cops, and it's a pretty open area, so you're going to get spotted. New Orleans, the last few people that went to New Orleans, I think it's at the Ben Franklin statue on the north side in Lafayette Square. And last time a guy went there, he goes, dude, there's 2 cops parked on the curb right in front of Ben Franklin. So he left.
Ben Asen has said that he would never bury it next to a statue like that. Per Ben. Just a side note.
Yeah, well, it's the garden goyle. If there's a planter around there in Cleveland, rectangular plot, that's in the garden goyle. That's a Sierran garden. He's using a lot of those. If the African fairy is present, you're looking in the planter. It's easier for Byron to bury it there too. And it's usually in the back where you can't easily reach, because those workers these planters ain't small. You got to jump up into them.
Yeah.
And most of them are 2.5.
Yeah. Well, they found it in Cleveland. Who knows where he would have buried it?
Yeah. And in Cleveland, he buried that one in a hurry because it wasn't deep at all. And it had already been busted by. They think Andy Abrams broke that. I was like, no, that thing was already broke. It was packed.
I don't think any of these boxes are 3 feet down. Just
no. The only one I think that might be is the one on Roanoke Island on the beach. I think Byron was given a little. This is stuff where Byron's not being literal. He's not literally telling you to dig 2.5 feet. If you look that up, there's like an inside. If you've ever worked construction, like if you I got an acre of property here. Go out here and try to dig a 3-foot hole. You're going to be out there for a while. Byron was not. Yeah, it's like
not 15 minutes on a date, by the way.
Yeah. As you go down, the hole has to get wider, and it's not something you're going to be doing in Cleveland. Palancar said, I was looking out, and all of a sudden Byron showed up, and hey, you can go ahead. And Byron's like, I already buried it. And you can see from the pictures, the top of it probably ain't even 13 inches deep. It got hit by a shovel. And I don't think they ever found all of it. So the guy probably broke it. What's this crap? Well, threw it away, or it's still. I was always thinking, if you go to the Greek Gardens in Cleveland and dig through that dirt, you actually might find a piece of it.
Yeah.
Send Brian's in or take it home. People probably already done that, but don't get arrested. Don't embarrass yourself by getting arrested. If you dig a hole, fill it in. Make it look like you weren't there.
Right.
That's why
At least fill it in, for crying out loud. I know, right?
Yeah.
People are just leaving giant gaping holes in these parks and making it harder for themselves and everyone else who comes after them.
The guy in Roanoke Island that contacted me, and I said, dude, I don't come there. I've never been there. He goes, well, I know it's about the book. I guess he found me on Facebook. I said, listen, dude, I will tag you in the video. This is not too long after another podcast released a video talking about home plate. Somebody, I'm not saying it's him, but somebody went out there and literally pulled home plate up and dug a gigantic hole and then left it. Damage. So if you get caught there, they're going to charge you probably for all that crap.
Yeah,
And I'll tell people this. Late last year, 2 people got arrested at the Waterside Theater on Roanoke Island, trespassing at night. People have been arrested at the Wright Brothers Memorial. This ain't no joke. I mean, some of these places are federally. These ain't cops arresting you. These are like federal national parks people.
And by the way, if you do want to go in and do an operation at WBM, ping me and let me know. I will, even though I don't, I know where the cameras are, and I know how they patrol it, and I know how to get in there at night.
It says, Mark, we're going to send out somebody to talk to you.
Hey, prove it. I say prove it.
Denver. Yeah,
hey, I got a boogie, guys.
I'll tell you what, if you go in the Elizabethan Gardens on Roanoke Island with a backpack, they're going to search it. And if you don't let them look into it, I'll tell you what, that was the funniest. Like 2 years ago, I called them and I was like, yeah. And the lady's like, what? The Secret? And I was like, yeah, I'm calling about The Secret by Byron Price. And I was wondering, she goes, and she goes just like this. She goes, y'all know anything of this guy on the phone's talking about The Secret? And I hear this lady go, hang up on his ass. Click. And I was like, hello? Oh, I hear, hang up on his ass. We don't want
I'm not convinced it's on the island. But hey guys, I got a boogie. It was great. Happy,
Hang on, we're going to end all this right now. I'll end the stream. Hey, I want to appreciate everybody.
Wrap it up.
I don't know how many podcasts it is for the year, but
I want to know, before we wrap it up, Eric, Doug, I wanted to hear what your question was for Ben. No, you didn't get to ask him.
Oh, I was going to confirm that what kind of places did he believe that Byron would bury the stuff? He said last time on our interview before that Byron wasn't a risk taker, and I wanted him to elaborate on that. So
yeah, give us the answers.
He's a Boy Scout, and he didn't do anything wrong.
Close to a parking lot, cover by foliage and trees, those types of things.
No private property, nothing that was going to get by. Byron wasn't going to go bury these any places that were going to get him arrested. These are public parks, public property. They're not on private property. They're not national monuments. And
if anybody wants to hear him confirm that, we got another interview. You can look it up. But I hope he goes back on soon. Actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we want to.
I'm glad I was on this week so I could chat with him. That was awesome.
You can come on every time. Well, he'll come back in Roanoke Islands next month. So it's January. So we're that's going to be the puzzle, and a lot of people are really into that. But we want to thank everybody for watching our podcast this year. This is the first year we started it. I don't know what is this, podcast 6 or something like that, but reviews have been real good, and we appreciate everybody watching. And I'd like to thank Mark and Justin, and of course Doug Mann, for
Thank
helping
you, sir.
people on here.
This guy.
We want everybody to have a happy holiday and stay well, and Merry Christmas and everything else, and Happy New Year. And we will see you guys in 2025, and hopefully we will find something then. Douglas, you got anything to throw at anybody?
Hey, come to DCCR and see what I want. See what I'm thinking. Have a good Merry Christmas. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Eric.
All right, guys. Happy holidays, guys.
All right.
And
Great seeing you
everybody.
guys.
Happy
Bye.
holidays, guys.
Peace.
Pleasure talking.